We did one. Spain. Remember we were in Spain?
Wow. Remember John started out?
Yeah. John was great.
So he came out Marina Singapore.
So we're doing he bought the project he was working on Conrad. He was like, I was gonna say that thing was in Singapore.
Must has he done the raffle? Yeah. She was, I think the leader that she was right. I was there for the raffle.
Who wouldn't do that?
I should have given that for this. I can come in that. Like one episode. I mean, you can talk Rick's died tells what is? Yeah. There's lots of places to die. You know.
So many places to die.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for your patience. We got the IT issue resolved. I'm calling this meeting of the large BAR order. This is March 8th, 2023 meeting of BAR large, public meeting room at George Street. I'm John Robinson. I'm the chairman of the BAR. With me this evening, we have Jay White, who is recusing for item number 2, Lou Sobchuk, who is recusing on item number 8, James Metters, Seton Brown, and Carol Wheeler, our alternate, and our volunteer, who she's complimenting. She is alternate. As I was saying privately to you, thank you for many, many long years of service as an alternate, and somebody we always rely on. City staff present are Tori Parrish, who is in person as opposed to virtually, as well as Lawrence Courtney, staff architect. For those who are not familiar with the meeting format, there will first be an introduction and overview of the projects by Ms. Parrish. That will be followed by the applicant's presentation, which has a 10-minute time limit unless extended by the chair. That may be followed by any questions of the applicant from the board or staff. Any and all presenters need to clearly state their name when they begin speaking at the presentation. Persons affiliated as a presenter with the project, be they the owner, developer, architect, or others, should speak during this portion of the meeting rather than the following public comment period. The application presentation is followed by public comment. The board is required to consider public comment that has been submitted in writing by noon business day before the meeting. That has in fact been disseminated to the board. Those will not be read into the record, which is a relatively new practice for us, unless it's deemed necessary by the chair. The consideration of written public comment is followed by public comment for those of you who are with us this evening. There's a 2-minute time limit for members of the public wishing to speak, which may be extended by the chair. The applicant should not respond to any comments made during public comment at that time. Public comment period is followed by city staff comments and recommendations. This is in turn followed by the applicant's response to either the public comment and or the city staff comments and recommendations. There's a 5-minute cap on this response time. After this, the applicant should speak if called upon and recognized by the chair. This is then followed by a board discussion and potential vote on any agenda item. At this point, the applicant's presentation and public comment are considered closed. The applicant should clarify inaccurate information being recognized by the chair by raising their hand. This is also a friendly reminder to those of us who are members of the public this evening that they need to state their name and address for the record. No agenda item this evening has been deferred. Please turn off all cell phones or other potentially disruptive devices. And also a reminder generally to presenters and members of the public, the comments before this board should be limited to architecture. Comments related to zoning, parking, traffic, lot coverage, or livability concerns are not the purview of this board and therefore will not be considered as part of the record on any individual application. And with that, we have agenda item number 1, which is approval of minutes from the February 22nd, 2023 meeting. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Agenda item number 2, 295 Calhoun Street.
Hey, can I also should like to make a reminder that due to tech issues and phone issues, I would just urge board and public to speak up, speak loudly so that it can be recorded cleanly. And agenda item number 2 is 295 Calhoun Street. This one is in Charleston Village, District 7 in the Old City District. Requesting conceptual approval for new construction of a 7-story mixed-use development. On that, showing the location of the building on the south side of Calhoun, that's from the Road Hospital. The few photos. Okay, and we'll get with the update.
Good evening, members of the GAR. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Jason Long with Southeastern Development. We're pleased to present our revised 7-story design today for 295 Calhoun. That we received from each of you at our last GAR presentation a few weeks ago. We took notes that night and also went back and rewatched the meeting online to make sure that we understood and could respond to each of the comments. Heard a lot of positive comments at the last meeting, and it seems that we were very close conceptually. In fact, many of the comments were referred to ones for further down the road. However, we tried to address each of them in this iteration. Rather than go through the entire presentation tonight, out of respect for your time, tonight we'd like to go over specific changes that address DAR and staff comments from the last meeting. So with that, Lawrence, would you mind going to page 6, and it's the ones that are at it's labeled at the bottom of the page. So I'm not sure what PDF page that would be. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so page 6 shows our Halsey view side, our Halsey side of the building. And so I'm going to go through changes that we made from the last presentation. So in this view, we reduced the 7th floor cornice to a lighter 12-inch overhang. We reduced the cornice profile at the 4th floor. The 4-story volume was offset to create a clean cornice termination. Eliminated conflicts between cornices and balcony railings. We have two views here. Actually, page 5 is a different view, and it shows that we added balconies, or in this view here, we added a brick relief to break up the repetitive punch window facades at both the south and the north ends of Halsey. We're fine with either one of these. We just thought it would be good to present options in expression of the board. We're fine with either one of these. We also reduced and aligned balcony recesses at the 7th floor with typical floors close to Calhoun. Please go a couple pages to page 8. Also staying on Halsey, with just a little bit different view further down the road, closer to Calhoun. In this view, you'll see that we pushed the 2-story metal portion further in to create separation between the cast stone and metal base of floors 1 and 2. Cannot eliminate this element completely. This contains our most affordable studio units that will likely be occupied by MUSC staff and nurses. This was noted in the presentation last time by Tom Anderson with MUSC. These are very important to their mission, and so we felt it's important to keep these units here on in this view. Lawrence, would you please go to page 10? Okay, so this is the corner here. So actually on the left side of the view, this is showing those balconies Also, we have the option here with the brick pump out. But this is to break up the repetitive punch windows again on both the north and the south side. Fine with either way. And also, this shows the Chancellor's Corner of entry. We heard a few different comments. So, we heard comments that it felt too heavy. We also heard 3 comments that they liked it, that board members liked it as it was presented. Therefore, we chose the majority opinion and kept this one the same. Would you please go to page 12? This is our Calhoun Street view relating to the hospitals across the street. So in this view, we improved the alignment of the windows at the 7th floor with the typical floors. We added an offset of brick relief so that they cleanly terminate into the main facade. We increased the recess between the center and side facades to create more separation. The balconies, we reduced them so they're more like Juliet balconies, also helps with this recess. In the center section, we lightened the brick color. We heard that it was too dark. We've also heard that a continuous white brick was preferred, that's relief by staff. This is just a lighter shade of the gray, so it still has the contrast. We're indifferent and fine either way. The board of the BR would like us to address this in terms of the brick color. Lastly, on this view, we eliminated misaligned lintels and brick spandrels at the center portion of Juliet balconies. This increases the verticality of this view. Why don't you please go to page 50? On the park side, adjacent to the Roper parking lot. On this view, we added the balconies are also the brick relief option to break up the repetitive punch windows, just like we did on Halsey. Again, we're fine either way. I'm not going to do a lot of the same moves that we did on Halsey on this side, so I won't go and repeat the same modifications for the sake of time tonight. Lawrence, please go to page 20. I'm still on the far side, showing some of the lake side. In this view, we reduced the 7th floor cornice to a lighter 12-inch overhang again. We've reduced the cornice profile of the 4th floor. We have the 4-story offset to create clean cornice termination. We eliminated conflicts between the cornices and balcony railings. And we've added again the balcony, and this one's showing the brick relief here to break up the repetitive punch window facades. Back to the lake side. Okay, in this view, you'll notice particularly on the amenity center, we added brick relief at the punch window facade facing the pool deck to reduce the horizontal keel, as we heard at the last meeting. We created a break in the 6th floor cornice above typical floor balcony to increase verticality on the facade facing the pool deck. And lastly, we significantly reduced the pool deck overhang at the 1st floor facing the boardwalk. Page 23. Thank you. So after incorporating these comments, we're very pleased with this design, and it's better for it. While we recognize there's still some opposition out there to our zoning, we've made great progress working with interested neighbors. We've committed to these neighbors that we've met with to continue our conversations and include members of the public throughout our development process. All of our iterations and meetings throughout this process have made our project better than the previous one. We're very proud of this design, and it will be an asset for the city of Charleston. We made great effort to respond to each comment at the last meeting, and we hope you'll support our conceptual design tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else, speaking as part of the applicant's presentation? I just want to make sure. Very good. We will proceed to public comment from those who are with us this evening, but written public comment that was submitted has already been disseminated and considered by the board. Members of the public wishing to speak on this agenda item. If you'll approach the podium. And again, for everyone, please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Crawford, and my husband David Crawford and I live at 182 Wentworth Street. We are in the block between Ashley and Gadsden, so we are well within just a few blocks from this project. We wholeheartedly believe in this project. If you look now, there's with what's on the parking lot, it's just a blight on the city. The design is, and I'm a resident of Charleston. I grew up on the peninsula. I am almost 68 years old. I have seen so many changes within this city just during my short lifetime. But, you know, I'm not an architect, as some of us are not in this room, but I mean, aesthetically, it's beautiful. And it fits in with a lot of the new architecture that's going in around the city. Jasper, it's now in line with Roper Hospital. It's dwarfed by the new Medical University Children's Hospital. But I recently retired, and just last month. And in my job, part of my job was to travel around the entire coast of South Carolina. And I met with every municipality along the coast of South Carolina. And I can tell you for a fact that everybody has the same issue as we do here in Charleston, and that is workforce housing. And our two largest employers within the city, the Medical University and Roper St. Francis, are in full agreement with this project. And we desperately need workforce housing, and this is perfect for the hospital district. I don't know what else to say. I think the developer has gone way above to try and satisfy everybody within the community with the association, which we're in support of. I think the amenities that they are offering is, I look forward to walking around their beautiful new park and what they plan to do as far as the mitigation towards the flooding around the hospital district. I mean, I don't know what else anybody can say, but please, I mean, I think it's time that we approve this project. It really is an addition to the community, and especially to Charleston Village. And trust me, I've lived next to group college students all the time. This will be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Further if you heard on this agenda.
Good evening, Tom DeYoung, Chairman of the Board of Mason Prep. First of all, thank you all for doing what you do. Really important. So this letter is important to DRL that we are in support of this project. We believe the developer's commitment to quality would be a benefit to Charleston's charm, allowing the DRL guiding principles on new construction in downtown district. We feel the 7-story design is architecturally attractive. I'm not an architect, but you guys probably know. And it relates well to the surroundings of downtown Charleston. The 4-story elements on Halsey create a townhome feel, and that is really attractive to the neighborhood and to Mason Prep as neighbors who we share most of the boulevard. As previously stated, I've written a letter in the past, but I was never able to attend, so my apologies for that. The board is working towards making facility safety enhancements within the confines of the school. That's really important to us, the safety of our students, faculty, and staff. We appreciate the developer's commitment to incorporate that safety of our school in their design improvements around Long Lake. Really important. Previous commenter just stated about the flooding situation around Long Lake. It's an issue for Mason Prep. They have good ideas about how can we address that situation. That really speaks very well to us, the school. In summary, I'm going to keep this much shorter than 2 minutes. We are in full support of this project and request PR approve the project design today that will benefit the surrounding neighbors for years to come. I didn't, Chairman, do you want to end this? I apologize, I didn't get it in time.
What we'll do is, if you will submit it to Tory Parrish electronically, we'll have it in the record and go down to the deadline to have it. Is that the same thing you just read?
Yes, sir, and I think I missed the deadline, I apologize.
That's okay, well, by you reading it right here, right now in person, it's considered part of the record. So if you want a copy of it to be left with Ms. Parrish, that's fine.
You can make a copy. All right. You can check my spelling on.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Dion. Further members of the public? Yes, sir. Mr. Butcher, right?
Mr. Butcher?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Cooper.
Cooper, excuse me.
Close. I used to be associate. I'm here again today to show my support for the 295 Fountain project. The 66 Jackson Street, I represent the townhomes that make up 62, 64, and 66 Jackson. As I said, I'm here to support the development today, and after reviewing the latest design incorporating Bart's most recent comment, I think the developers come up with a beautiful, well-thought-out design that reflects the speed. I think it's stated, but I think it should be noted again that the design we have today, while it's been painful to get to this point, it's much better than where it started, thanks to the input and efforts and feedback. After reviewing the latest renderings of the building and the street perspectives provided by the developer, I think it's apparent that this design now results in the scope and scale of the surrounding building and area. Surrounding buildings and area. Seems to be a tremendous enhancement to this intersection. You're never going to satisfy everyone regarding the design. However, we have to find a compromise that balances the economic realities of the development and the feedback and input received from the various constituent groups in this project. I hope what we see today is something everyone can live with. Past the design, we'll see some other attributes you've heard from others about this. It will provide some significant amenities to the neighborhood, but most importantly, its contribution to the city and the critical infrastructure improvements needed to address the flooding in this area. It will provide what our own Director of Stormwater Management has described as, quote, a significant public benefit, unquote. I don't know how anyone can look objectively at the latest designs and consider it so architecturally bankrupt that it wouldn't merit approval. There are a lot of residents and organizations behind this project now, many of whom you've already heard from. If you need to continue to work with the developer on area details, then by all means do so. Have those conversations under the status of this thing and approve.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I apologize for the error.
No, that's okay.
Further comments from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is John Williams. I live on Live Oak Avenue in Ashland Forest. I am Will Turn on Johns Island, and we were approached 2 years ago by Southeastern about this project. They showed us the conceptual drawings in the beginning and asked us if we possibly be part of it. We thought everything was fantastic. They built our current building that we are in now. We regularly get comments about how wonderful it looks, who the architect was. So it's something that we feel like would fit our image, and we're excited about hopefully trying to do some sort of food outlet in that area. Maybe a market of some sort. It could be a restaurant. The area itself, we spent a lot of time looking at and research a lot of food areas, food. So we think it would be a great opportunity for us. Compared to the other buildings in the area, I feel like it is very architecturally, especially compared to the UFC and some of the other buildings in the area. I also think that based on the construction of other buildings in the peninsula, new construction, that it is far superior to other areas. So I'm hoping, I spoke 2 or 3 months ago at this meeting as well. I'm hoping that this will be the final one that we get to speak at.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Other members of the public wishing to be heard?
I'm Sonia Taylor. I was here last time that we met. I live at 27 Broughton Road, which is in the Crescent. But my husband owns a number of properties downtown, including 281 Calhoun Street. I was here last time to support the project. I'm here again to voice my support, my husband's support the project. I think the design is very attractive. I like the new changes as well, but before. I think that it fits as far as size and in the context of the area. I agree with the comments that everyone else has made, and I would say if we get approved and move forward on the project.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
Other members of the public wishing to be heard? Ms. Finnegan.
Heidi Charleston. This is the sixth hearing for 295 Calhoun for theater large, and we stand before you unwavering in our position, strongly opposed to this inappropriate proposal. While it can certainly be exhausting to review the same project time and time again, we are calling on you to remain vigilant and not yield and apply the highest degree of scrutiny. The stakes are too high for potential permanent impacts to our architectural landscape. The Board of Architectural strongest institution of its kind, setting the standard for communities across the country. For over 90 years, this board has held the line in preserving Charleston's unique look and feel. Anything new introduced to our built environment should respect and contribute to it, because it's a built environment unlike anywhere else. A square mass wrapped around a parking garage with nondescript, uninspired architecture that could be seen in any other city, lacking in quality, texture, depth, detail, verticality, and harmony, is nowhere near the threshold worthy of our historic district and completely wrong for Charleston. It's especially wrong considering that it's located within Charleston Village. For conceptual review, the ordinance directs the board to consider how a proposed building relates to its site, its neighborhood, and the city. And the design continues to disregard the scale and character of its historic neighborhood. Really nothing has changed with the massing scalar architectural approach to the building from its very first review in April 2021 to today. Commentary from board members from previous reviews of what we consider to be largely the same design perfectly summarizes issues with the building. First, on massing, back in 2021, a board member said, quote, "Mass seems to be the biggest issue with everyone. It does not feel like it's been articulated very well with the overall boxiness. I get that there's a garage in there, but there's a lot of skin around it." Second, on scale, last month a board member noted, quote, "We've discussed ad nauseum the fact that there's this inherent conflict with the Charleston Village scale." Third, in terms of it serving as a highly visible gateway site, a board member said in 2021, quote, "You will see the rough facade from very far away. This will be the first building you see as you come in. This is an opportunity to do a great building, and I just don't see it." Finally, a board member previously articulated proper procedure around a denial, saying, quote, "We as a board undermine what we do with a denial if we allow basically what is the same concept to come back before us with some cosmetic changes. I feel as a board member, if we can't get height, scale, and mass right, everything is downstream from that. Tiny incremental changes to the same design are not an appropriate way to deal with a denial. Big moves are necessary and have been clearly called for by this board on several previous occasions. There is a consistent expectation for denied projects to go back to the drawing board and countless other examples that the best way to respond to a denial is to take a completely fresh approach in response to board and community feedback. Most recently, redesigns of the Regis Milk site, the George Street project, and Courier Square Phase 2 prove this. Last time you deferred the project, and the door is still open. Nothing's holding you to entertaining this design. Do not undermine yourselves, given your strong record of holding firm against this inappropriate proposal. We again urge you to deny this project and protect the integrity of the Board of Architectural Review process. Your community is behind you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finnegan. Additional members of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda. Mr. Schweber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin Schweber, of the Historic Charleston Foundation. I'd like to speak in support of my colleagues in Preservation Society and speak for the hundreds of other citizens in North Charleston who have commented on this project, urging for denial over the past 2 years. Again, we would like to oppose this project on grounds of denial based on height, scale, mass, and architectural direction.
Thank you. Other members of the public wishing to be heard. Thank you.
I'm Marie Turner. I live at 59D Berry Street. And I've been following 295 for some time. We saw a lot of iterations of it. And we really do want the developer to be successful. we know he has the right to build that building there, a building there. It's just that not to the cost of Charleston. I mean, even in the proposal, it's been stated that it's gateway to Phoenix. And it is. It's not necessarily the medical district. You know, that when Bennett Manor is there, Charleston Village is there, and very nice. We appreciate the work of the many iterations of these meetings that you've gone through, the VAR, the work of the VAR and the mission. I hope you'll stand strong, just for the quality is right. Very much.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Other members of the public wishing to be heard? Hearing none. City staff comments?
First, I have a couple of notes. I'll start reading while once we get the slides up. But number one, the applicant was asked by staff to restudy using the stone base consistently around the building. While a consistent recess would be best, staff is neutral on the application of a consistent base now that the hyphens read more consistently as one material, similarly recessed from grade to roof. The second one is the color of the brick at the central portion of Calvin Street has been lightened, which is an improvement. Using a secondary accent color at this portion further emphasizes the importance of the center of a building that is also rather symmetrical with the central hierarchy, while the ground floor uses are apartments rather than public serving such as a retail place or grand retreat. All right. Number one, revised plans indicate an intentional vertical offset to allow the cornice of the four-story portions to conclude by intersecting a wall. This is visible in plan on page A05 and in several renderings such as pages 5 and 6. Therefore, the sidewalls of the four-story portions do not align with the sidewalls of the balconies or the main form of the building, and a tiny step will be seen everywhere that these occur. This detail is critical, and staff has advocated for study on how the brick cornice and balcony railings would intersect, or how the cornice can conclude away from the balcony railing. While the proposed allows the cornice to conclude cleanly, the offset is not an ideal condition, and it potentially makes the four-story portions read as appendages. The rest of that is just the previous comment, but I do want to also state that we believe that that is a detail that could be fleshed out at preliminary, but we do find it critical nonetheless. Number two, suggests a study of wrapping some of the 7th floor in brick, since the 7th floor is in the same plane as the 6th floor. And this could offer some roofline variation across the building. Number three, the first floor apartments facing Calvin Street have a finished floor level that is 6 feet above grade. Pages A10 and A10B of the new submittal, the Calvin Street elevations show doors or reflective glass or internal lighting. Confirm and consider what occurs at the exterior between the ground and the finished floor of these apartment units. When internally lit, these will read off grade, which will benefit the inhabitant, but could be odd for the pedestrian experience. Press lintels or headers consistently at openings unless conflicting with the cornice. This can be handled and fleshed out at preliminary review. 5, as we have discussed the benefit of maintaining the linear park, confirm that the fire access lane has been introduced to the fire marshal, and that a park-like arrangement, which includes a mix of hardscape, landscape, and any site furnishings as shown, will be permissible. And then I have one comment that I want to get on the record now for preliminary. There are many intersections of brick cornice, stone base, metal balcony floors, and balcony railings. The policy statement on Charleston standards emphasizes craftsmanship. All of these material intersections need study and careful detailing. 7, the Halsey Street elevation includes a triple window set adjacent to the chamfered corner, and this is found nowhere else in the building. Revise for consistency or restudy the fenestration patterns to include this in other locations. As part of this effort, staff recommends streamlining the fenestration patterns around the building, particularly on the east and west elevations, to have some consistency in the pattern. And 8, confirm what is represented over the 6th floor parapet at the Halsey Street elevation near the lake, as nothing appears on the roof plan at this location. Staff's recommendation is conceptual approval with these comments and board comments.
The applicant is now entitled to response for time period of
My name is Vic Mills, and I'm CEO of Southeastern Development. Looking at your agenda, my comments will be very short. Bottom line is, thank you for the comment. That's the last meeting, studied videos, studied all the notes. Since that time, we've spent working to come up with something that we hope that you will find satisfactory to every one of those comments. And I think that we have done that. Finally, I want to make that we will continue, if we are fortunate to gain approval, we'll continue working with the surrounding neighbors. We've spent so many meetings with neighbors and listening and making changes. And the result is a better building. Listening to you and listening to our neighbors. I will remind you, response to a tremendous need for quality housing in the district. And activated by the recent announcement for a new 100,000 square foot building from in the USA. So, thank you very much for your consideration, and we hope that you will come to a favorable to us.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Board discussion. Sure. And a friendly reminder to board members to speak up if they have an issue. Thank you.
So as I stated in the last meeting, and as I believe, we have to build buildings this height. There's no question. I think that I articulated clearly the key things that I saw you responded to, so I appreciate that. I saw you responded to other things that other people also brought up. Appreciate your commitment to the project and continuing to bring it back, which shows your commitment to the project. I have no idea what I'm about to say. It's going to affect it. I was ready to, like, okay, let's move forward, take another step, but, you know, it's difficult for me to think in terms of this board getting involved in a choice. Right? So the question that I wanted to ask before you step down, it's your choice for the design. You didn't give that to us. You gave us two choices in several areas, as if that's what I'm looking for. I'm not the designer of the project. I was looking for a choice. I thought I would get a plan. And so when the plans came out and there were choices, that's not what my job is. And when you said, and I know how you meant it, when you said we're indifferent over it. I know what you meant by indifferent. When you're okay with it, I got it. I understood it. But in my opinion, you can't be indifferent on it. You got to take a position on it. And it's your design, and you own it. So, Mr. Chairman, I have a hard time staying from this because I don't have an application. I have something that I'm asked to make a choice on here and here, and that's just not my job. For that reason,
Further board comments?
Right, I'll take the next one. I voiced a concern the last time about the motion that was made. Because it included all of the staff comments without really emphasizing or highlighting the main issues that need to be addressed. There was a lot of detailed comments we had about massing comment. And you know, when you have a motion that includes board and staff comments, you always hope that the applicant understands exactly what to pick. But I feel like the main massing comments, the comments about height, scale, and mass, not addressed, so some of them were not addressed. So one comment that Ms. Chuck made was about the big side, that elevation, and if you go to page 22, it was that the elevation is too horizontal, and that the elements that project out towards the lake, are just too, the sheer size of it is too. It's very square and it needs to be addressed. And the applicant came back and showed some balconies on the inner elevation that's not really very visible. So this is a mess. And unfortunately, it's just stayed the same. And there's a comment about the east and west elevation, that it was developed and it was successful, more successful than some of the other elevations. And there were balconies added to those elevations, but those elevations didn't really need to change. So it seems like to add balconies to the east and west elevation, you could have taken balconies away or massing away from these huge porch-like elements that just seem oversized. So there was also a comment about the 7th floor, that it should be pushed back further, that should be studied, and I don't see a change there. There was a comment to make it really a meaningful step down, because it's right here to step it down towards the lake. So it's a little disappointing that some of the main height scale and mass comments were not addressed, but small items like the cornice detail was addressed, which should come at a later level. Also, the recesses on the Halsey Boulevard. I think there was, you mentioned that the recess or the first and second floor between the 4-story projections was pushed back by 2 feet. And I understand that you need a certain unit size, but it says on a 300-foot long facade is not really an impact on the mass of the building. In Calhoun Street, the recess is perceivable, and that's positive. That was a good change. Also, a comment about the rooftop equipment. It was probably also further down the road once you develop the plan, but that shouldn't come out to the wing that the lake. It should be pushed back. I don't see that change being made. And then staff actually brought up with their comment number 3, first floor apartments, if we go to page 810. Seems to be an issue that really needs to be addressed. It's on Calhoun Street, and the center units that used to be retail, I suppose. We have some retail, we have an entrance lobby, and then we have residential units in between. Here, let's start at an elevation of 6 foot, and everything below is shown as a glass storefront, but because it's the flood elevation is that high, you can't put residential units there. So, staff said this needs to be developed further, but this will significantly change the elevation in the facade on Calhoun Street. This elevation, you won't see these glass storefronts. Shouldn't have their spandrel panel there. It's not typical. It would be allowed in Charleston. So that's something that we didn't pick up, I think, in the previous iterations, but there's a conceptual issue that needs to be addressed. There is a problem if a motion doesn't specifically say what you want, and we're not supposed to tell the architects what exactly they should design, but we always hope for a big impact that's only incremental.
course, I feel like it's deja vu all over again, right? We're seeing basically the same presentation now for the sixth iteration. And when there's not an overall improvement and it's incremental each time, community members, the board, the applicant, we all get frustrated and disappointing. We know that this process works because it's worked on so many other projects out in the city. But it only works when there's a positive relationship where the applicant is willing to listen and use us as a guidepost to move forward and progress. I appreciate Ms. Bennigan bringing up the comments that the board has made over the past few presentations because they're all accurate. The applicant has an incredible opportunity to do something great at this location. It could be something that the city, the applicant, the board, our citizens, visitors can all be excited about. And I don't think that this building has met that threshold. The notes that were missing from the presentation that this board has given on multiple occasions are addressing specifically the height, the scale, the mass, and the architectural direction. None of which, from what I can see, have been addressed. We want a project that we can all be excited for, and I don't think.
Okay. So we're here again, looking at pretty much the same design. And everybody's voicing same concerns, including staff, even though it's sort of detail oriented and incremental. But we also suddenly facing the new issue, which is staff comment number 3, and addressing the pedestrian and the arms, and suddenly we have the 6 vehicle, which is above me, both sides of something we don't know what it will be, and it's not approachable. So I don't want to every detail, but we're still not there. At this point. We just need different design. Altogether.
Furthermore comment. Well, I'll be brief. I think Mr. Metter's concerned about there being options that this board chooses is something that certainly when we deny something or defer something gets incorporated into the project, but the notion that the board would superimpose choices as opposed to what the designer, the architects, the developer would propose is something I don't recall. Of course, our comments end up being affecting choices, but as Mr. Meadows said, I don't know the choices, at least this Wheeler and city staff was capable of pointing out one issue, there's just a question mark regarding this particular case on one of the facades and how exactly it's going to function or not function. I'll leave it at that. I think that the applicant has in fact listened to board and staff comments and public comments and has made changes to areas that might even delve into the area of preliminary review, larger issues such as what happens with potentially with a setback on the second story or other features, I would agree with Ms. Weaver's comments that I feel the applicant has been very responsive to some comments and not to others.
Mr. Chairman, I'll motion. Sorry.
Now, Mr. Metter, to be clear, as a technical matter, I'm going to treat you saying you were abstaining as abstaining from this inclusion, since you stated that in the presentation to make sure. I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, I interrupted.
Motion to deny the project report and staff comments.
Okay. Mr. Brown, your motion, as I understand it, is to deny conceptual approval for application number 2, incorporating board and staff comments. Yes. There's a second. Okay. Is the motion is in proper order? Vote to Ms. Wheeler, how do you vote on the motion? Mr. Brown? In favor. Ms. Socha? And myself, may not in favor. No, I understand. So the application for conceptual approval at this time with this presentation. Agenda item number 3. Fain Street. Yeah, well, Mr. Wheeler is rotating off since Mr. White had a conflict on this agenda item. And we'll wait for Mr. White to return momentarily. Proceed with agenda item number 3, Ms. Perry.
Agenda item number 3 is 122 Gadsden Street. This is new construction project in Charleston Village. New District 3 and Old and Historic District. Requesting the final approval of the mock-up. Location of the project. And type of the project. The project yesterday to review the mock panel.
Very good. Okay, Dr. Just making sure. Who's here for the applicant?
Well, Board, I'm Tom Miller, owner and the builder. Kind of caught off guard yesterday exactly what the assignment was as far as having it complete. We bought it after your pre-con meeting, so pretty much our brick was supposed to be in there in October. We got it 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Had to get made from factory to approved brick, so basically 5 months late. So we kind of rushed it a little bit, and we're kind of in a spot now where kind of it's time here. We're trying to move forward with trying to get that part of it.
Okay. Mr. Miller. Is there any member of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda item?
Question for the applicant. Are you talking about ordering the brick or installing the brick?
Installing it is working on site, but the brick actually hasn't been made. There was not even enough to mock up. There was 0 brick on there.
Staff comments. There have been a discontinuity in the transfer of information regarding this mock-up sample panel due to a change of ownership and general contractor. Basic information about the requirements and goals of the mock-up were not communicated. Finished and incomplete. Deficiencies include, but are not limited to, mortar joints which are not consistent and uniform. There's no representation of a brick control joint to demonstrate what an appropriate generalized brick mortar blend of color might be. Window pieces and parts need to be tightened up. The brick molding, casing, miters at the window are unacceptable. The window appears to be picture framed, which does not appear to match what is shown on drawings. Corbelling and mortar at corbelling are adequate to cover voids, not adequate to cover voids in the brick. The wood cornice is unfinished and the copper cap is not shown. Some stone pieces have been fill cut, resulting in an irregular joint and marring of the stone. The mortar joints and mortar color at the stone are inconsistent and need to be studied for better match. Joints shown on drawings is not represented, has this been changed? Copper flashing at the top of the stone belt course needs to be painted or sealed so as not to stain the stone over time. The aluminum railing is unacceptable and should be restudied or replaced by the wood railing. All wood joints and miters need to be tight, square, and plumb. Joints between wood and brick need to be tightened up and consistent. The wood column is actually to be GFRC. The typical lantern was not shown. The typical shutter and hardware were not shown. Torch copper sanding seam roof and gutter were not shown. Staff's recommendations in mile with board and staff comments. Mock-up sample to be extensively rebuilt and finished prior to another board site visit.
Mr. Miller, you have the opportunity to respond if you want to. I'll just add this here. Having seen this happen with other projects and handoff, I understand we would give you the benefit of the doubt on any number of miscommunications. It may not like it. We'll go to board discussion on this agenda item, and I will immediately follow up with this, which is that for Mr. Miller's benefit is that the mock-up on any given construction site has become our guarantor of what finished product is going to look like. We don't have, it's our best go-by in approving what the building is going to look like. And for that reason, we understand that mock-ups are financially a large obligation for any developer or contractor. We understand issues that we have locally with quality of craftsmanship and tradespeople who can do work adequately, particularly on the scale of something like mock-up. We understand that, and we've seen this time and time again. Obviously, with the number of problems with this particular mock-up, when we've seen projects denied or deferred, or mock-ups denied or deferred for far less. One flashing issue, I think it's going to have to be denied, but the staff has given very good counsel on why that is the case, and we'll work with you on doing that. And again, I mean it, and so giving you the benefit of the doubt, and you just kind of got handed to you, and wasn't what you thought it was. Further board staff comments.
Mr. Chairman, I've got photographs and I could go over them, but I think we're covered.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further board.
I agree with the board, or with staff on this recommendation.
Any further comments? Is there a motion? Denial of the mock-up incorporating board staff comments. Is there a second, Mr. Mayor? I'll second. Is in proper form, Mr. Brown, how do you vote? Mr. Mayor, Ms. Socha? Mr. White? And myself, yea, in favor. We look forward to working with the applicant to get it straightened out. Thank you. Thank you for general attitude about how we do this moving forward. Okay, very good. Agenda item number 4, 205 Meeting Street.
205 Meeting Street is the Charleston Hotel. This one is not a rated building. District 6, it was constructed in 1986. And it's in the Old Historic District. Requesting conceptual approval for exterior alterations and modifications. This is the property owned by the Charleston Hotel. And it's self-owned. Some existing photos. The northern courtyard off Market Street. And the corners will be a key component. And the board was out on site yesterday to review this in person, not to review and make decisions, but to see it. All right, well, we are ready for the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Casey Lab, I'm president of BAT Ownership Group in the Charleston Place. I'm going to give my time to people who know what they're doing and can speak to some specifics, but just a note about what we've been up to. We acquired the Charleston Place in October of 2021. We took over, we changed out the management structure with a local independent version of that in March of 2022, and since then we've been working on design plans, both interior and exterior, to really get to something that we could be proud of. In doing so, we've met with a lot of people from Nation Society and Sport Foundation to Mayor Riley and understanding what happened in '86 when this thing was built in the first place and what worked well, what didn't. And then really people, neighborhood from Ansonboro, French Quarter to neighboring businesses and families in the area. And I think we're able to present something that we're proud of, not changing the root and the foundation of what the building is, but perhaps continue. So today we just want to walk through what the vision is. I'm going to hand it over to our lead architect, Keith Simmel from Cooper Carey. He will speak on our behalf.
Thank you, Casey. Again, my name is Keith Simmel with Cooper Carey. Cooper Carey. We're working with several other fine consultants, LSPP, the architect is on the team, along with Stephen Whiteside, our civil engineer, and Reese Roberts is the landscape architect. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but I would like preemptively to ask for a few more minutes, 10 minutes, if you don't mind.
Well, you're entitled to 10. Would you like an additional 10?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you. And Lauren, if you could play along and hit the slides. Thanks. So we have, as Casey said, we met with some of the neighborhood groups. We also have gone in and received a zoning variance for the removal of the 4 trees in the Market Street courtyard, which you will see later in the presentation is a pretty key component of what we're asking permission to do. Next slide. So obviously most of you are probably pretty familiar with Charleston Place Hotel, bounded by Meeting, Market, King, and Hazel. On the right-hand side, you can see there are some very nice buildings that surround the hotel. And part of what we're asking for is permission for exterior modifications, really an attempt to elevate the guest experience and also the relationship of the building to its surroundings. This is just locates the building within the flood map. There's a tiny area where it snips the corner right at Meeting and Market. Other than that, we're good to go right along the spine of the peninsula. It opened in 1986. It's gone through a couple of name iterations. Most recently, as Casey also said, being purchased and taking on the name of Charleston Place. So we're excited to be involved with this next iteration of this great hotel. With some views of the overall building from the 2 primary corners at Meeting and Market, Market and King, as well as some aerial views and the courtyard that faces to Market Street, originally designed to be the arrival motor court. Shortly after it opened, it was discovered that it was not sized big enough to allow for cars to get in and out, and that's what pushed it onto the north side. And as you'll see, we're looking for some modifications to that as well. Next. Here's an aerial view of the hotel, or a map of the hotel, excuse me. Full block building. The north side is currently and will remain the primary vehicular arrival, and the south courtyard facing Market Street. We will be looking to integrate with more pedestrian activity. And then the 2 corners, again, Market King, Market and Meeting. Here's an overlay of the proposed changes that we're asking for approval for. And we'll get into some below details of that, so I won't spend much time on the slide. Here's the current condition on the north side of the building. The road moving from right to left connects the hotel to Meeting Street and then loops back out to Hazel. There's a turnaround under a very large porte cochere, and in the middle of that circular drive sits a statue and fountain of 4 horses. So we're asking for permission to remove and redesign this arrival experience for the guests, which will involve removing the large porte cochere and relocating the statue / fountain of the horses. Right. What we're proposing is that the primary, in fact, the only arrival experience for guests will be coming off of Union Street, to come down an alley of trees, to be moving through the site in a clockwise manner, arriving under a much lighter, much airier porte cochere arrival experience, landscaped in a way that creates sort of a park, although there will be vehicles moving through it. The vehicles would then move through and continue in their clockwise motion to the parking garage and then out to Hazel Street. To get to Hazel Street, because that's a public parking garage, the last little bit of the drive will be to maintain a 2-way drive experience, so folks can still get into and out of the parking garage without coming back in the reverse direction and then out to Hazel Street. All right. So here's that condition off of Meeting Street as the drive goes down towards the large porte cochere that's just below that red dashed line. Sort of a uninspired arrival experience for most hotel guests coming into Charleston and going to this hotel. Right. So what we're proposing is to create this really grand arrival experience, a tree-lined alley, folks driving down with painting low landscape, provide some color, big myrtles that reach over and create sort of this implied arch, a lovely gated arrival experience that you drive through right at the sidewalk, both sides, so the fire and emergency exits to get under that, and well lit so that when you arrive, you sort of escape from the city grid of Charleston and know that you've arrived at the Charleston place. There's another view of that sort of stepped away from the large porte cochere, looking in, and the motion the way the cars arrive to the hotel. You can see the hotel currently parks cars around that circle, and you can see a little bit of the horse statue will be relocated. So here's what we're looking at with the removal of that. The porte cochere becomes a cantilevered roof to protect cars, multiple lanes of cars from the rain and from the sun. But obviously it's lifted up, provides much more light and air in this space. The landscape, as I said before, to provide a sort of urban oasis within the middle of the block. And uplit and underlit on the bottom there to really elevate the arrival experience for the hotel guests. I'll be talking about some of the changes that occurred to the building as well, but I'll point them out as they come up. We're also planning to replace all the shutters on the building and on that later on an elevation. And as things pop up on our renderings, I'll point those out as well. Right. Again, here would be the arrival just before, as you're coming down, the arrival drive from Meeting Street. And that's the chair. Here you can see, sorry, thanks. And here you can see a much lighter porte cochere, this really nice intricate design, sort of the wrought iron influence, the arches, the posts coming up off the sidewalk. We were suggesting we use the cobblestones as a drive, so you get that really sensation, sort of vibrating sensation as you drive along that. You really know that you've arrived at this fantastic reenactment. And this is the last slide for the arrival experience. Looking towards the inside corner that folks currently move around in a counterclockwise motion. If you go to the next slide, see that we're looking to plant some really nice specimen trees, but then also create an opening there on the lower right-hand side. That would be a way for guests to get directly from this arrival port up to the rooftop bar, which you'll see in just a moment. But help really activate this space with both pedestrians and vehicles and create, again, this sort of sense of arrival and oasis. Now we'll move to the Market Street courtyard. As I said before, this was originally designed to be the primary arrival drop-off space for vehicles to the hotel and was quickly determined that it was too small. The property has currently been using this space as sort of a pop-up space where they've set up places where folks can relax during different seasons. It's used for different seasonal events and things, been wildly successful. And you can see that the design we're proposing really takes that to the next level, activates the space from the proposed activities inside, so that people are flowing in and out of the space, both from the hotel and also the folks within the city proper as they move along Market Street. So, here's the proposed design. As you probably know, there are 4 large magnolia trees in this courtyard. Those were the BZA trees that we received permission to remove. We're suggesting that they get replaced with 4 new, sort of more properly spaced magnolia trees, flower magnolia trees. The courtyard will be paved with stones so that it appears to flow from the outside to the inside. And you'll see double height lobby that we're envisioning into the courtyard, and cafes and restaurants from both sides to flow in and out of this space. Also note that on the sidewalk along Market Street, we are asking for permission to elevate that sidewalk and split the sidewalk so that the activity along Market Street really engages the facade of the building. Right now, you'll see in the photographs, Market Street slopes from King Street down to Meeting Street, and it starts level at King Street, and as you move east, there's 1 step, then 2 steps, then 4 steps, then 7 steps that really separate the retail activity from the street. This proposal is suggesting that we elevate the sidewalk to bring the guests, the folks walking along the sidewalk, the pedestrians, up to that retail level and catch up to the slope when it hits. This is the slide that illustrates that. There's a sidewalk up against the building. There's a small planting strip to absorb the change in slope, and then sort of a lower sidewalk. So it will be a split sidewalk, but both are wide enough to allow for 2-way traffic. We accomplished this for narrowing Market Street slightly, but it is still wider than Market Street, the Market Street that extends further to the west across the. And then one last thing I'll point out is that when it gets to Meeting Street, it actually widens back out to the current width. That's for 2 reasons. One is to give a turn lane to head north up Meeting Street, also to open the throat of Market Street as it faces the head of the markets across Meeting. Here's a rendering of the current condition with the 4 trees. You see 2 of the 4 trees in that side that are approved to be removed. And here's a rendering of the proposed new courtyard. You can see in the foreground the sidewalk with the grand steps that step down to the lower level of the sidewalk, the 4 flowering trees within the courtyard, the site furnishings, and then I'll also use this slide to point out some of the other changes that we're proposing on the rest of the building. You can see the shutters that would be replaced along with shutter hardware, and then at each of the piping of the building that extend up above the mansard roof, we are proposing that they get cupolas added to the top of them, sort of finish off what in our minds appears to be an unfinished element of the building. We're also requesting that the canopies all around the building, which you can see in the foreground on the lower right, be replaced with from what is currently green to either a Charleston green or black canopy. And that the windows, again, you can see 2 of the windows in the courtyard be replaced with arched windows that replicate the current stone arching in those areas. Also protrude out into the space, so they're really arched bay windows. See that in another rendering as well. Right. So here's a view looking straight into that courtyard. Again, with the gate in the front, with the lobby in the back. And here's that same view with the proposed design. Looking through, you can see the arched bay windows on either side of the rendering, and then straight through to the new glass wall for a double height lobby, which we'll show you in section and plan changes as well. We're really envisioning that to open up lobby space, which is pretty grand right now, but to make it even more grand and just fantastic arrival experience. So you see this daylight of folks moving in and out of this space. the existing condition there, you can see that this photograph is important because it shows the condition as it gets taller and taller, moving from King Street to Meeting Street, where the steps come down from the retail. They're not even really used as access for the retail. You'll see that the sidewalk now attaches folks up to those retail, really activates Market Street the way it was always intended. You've got that double level sidewalk, so folks can sort of window shop on the high level, they can bypass the windows on the low level. This is 80 decibel on both levels as well, from Meeting Street to King Street. Next. Here at the corner, and at the this is the corner of Meeting and Market, we are proposing that the floor of what is currently the Meeting at Market hub dropped to meet up with the level of the sidewalk, and at the corner be sort of carved away so that folks can walk through that diagonal corner and really help activate one of the primary intersections in all of downtown Charleston. So we're really excited about this proposal as well. Folks will be able to walk directly into that hub area. It will remain a hub, but they will be able to walk directly into that hub area, but then also take cover in the heated area. And here's a rendering of that. You can see the corner is sort of carved away. The architecture stays the same with the arches of the stone, but the facade peels back at a 45-degree angle and gains access directly to the hub. This view also shows more of those sort of tall hyphens that previously did not have. Actually, you can go one back and photograph one. You can see here the towers, the brick towers that extend up above the mansard. You can see several of them moving up Meeting Street and also down Market. And then in the next slide, you'll see that we're proposing to put cupolas on top of those to really complete the architecture, in our opinion. So I use caps or exclamation marks as you march along the low rise. Opposite side. So here's the opposite side at Market and King, and we're proposing the same thing, that we carve away that corner to really activate the corner again. And one thing I'll point out on this slide as well, in the distance you can see the glass pyramid on top of the clock tower, which we've always referred to as sort of the hinge where King Street sort of peaks and realigns with Main Street as it comes from the north down, and then takes an angle right at that moment. In the foreground, we're proposing a similar treatment at the corner, where the corner gets cut off. The cupola forms go on the top of the roof. And then in the distance, you can see that we're suggesting, or proposing, pyramid of glass get removed, and then a roof more appropriate to the style of architecture that this hotel is designed around, replace that roof, so that it really becomes a beacon as you look both up King Street from a distance and down King Street from the far north of Community Square. Here's another view of that suggestion. Here's the existing condition with the glass pyramid roof, the clock piece at the top of that, and then some small windows. Next slide. Architecturally, we're suggesting that that tower need to now be a stair on the inside, a circular stair that winds up from the meeting level, which is the second floor of the hotel, up to the rooftop food and beverage outlet and pool area. So there will be a circular stair within that tower, some new window expressions, and then a stand-card roof that is sympathetic to the rest of the architecture of the hotel. The last rendering is here's a view of the roof from the roof. The concerns that we've had from the beginning of working on the project is that a number of guest rooms look out over this roof, as does the food and beverage outlet from this level. This is at the pool level. Architecturally and structurally, we can't occupy that roof area, but we've, our landscape architect, we've come up with what we think is a pretty intriguing concept of creating sort of an undulating field out on that roof that folks won't be able to walk out onto, but that they would be able to experience visually. So if you go to the next slide, you got this sort of artificial grass pasture, if you will, with some artificial sheep, if you will, to provide sort of a visual break of this space. Now, this will not be seen from the public right away, so it's beyond the visuals. It does show the mansard roof of the clock tower in the distance and some of the canopy structures of the food and beverage outlet that line the top floor of this structure along the line. We've got, focusing primarily on the exterior, there will be a lot of work going on the interior of the hotel. A lot of spaces are being rearranged to create some more open areas. The porch share and lobby arrival experience to the north of the plan there with the circle, where you see the circle, the porch share being demoed, the two corners, meeting and market and king. You can see in part of the exterior wall to create that 45-degree chamfered space, and then the courtyard, the Market Street courtyard in the middle of the lower level. Next slide. So here's the overall proposed plan. We tried to highlight the areas that we're talking about here that we believe are under specific purview of BAR. We've got the north share courtyard, the Market Street courtyard, and then the two highlighted corners there where we've chamfered off those corners, provided doors into the hub on the right-hand side, and another food and beverage outlet on the left-hand side. And yeah, sorry, this plan doesn't show the difference. On the second floor here, we are indicating where the lobby, right in the middle of the plan there, goes from partially 2 stories to a larger component of two-story volume. You saw that in the one rendering right on at the courtyard. We're looking to create a 2-level area within the hotel's primary lobby, redesigning or reconfiguring that central circular stair. The effect that has on the exterior is to create much larger glass windows that face out onto the Market Street courtyard. On the at the hinge of King Street, you can see where we're beginning to see this is the demo plan. You can see it on the next page. Sorry, go to the next page. You can see the suggestion of that circular stair within that hinge right there. The double height volume of the lobby with a reconfigured stair and the yellowed out area that suggests that 2-story glass wall on the south side of our lobby. And then also just happens to show the roof of the porch. So the rest of these plans really just show a lot of the internal modifications that will be going on in the hotel. They don't have a large effect on the exterior of the hotel. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that it shows the upper landing of that circular stair. There's some internal work going on in the interior courtyard between the donuts of the east wing and the west wing, which you will not see from the public right of way. Next thing. Here at the rooftop, the stair lands up at this level in the hinge along King Street. There's some work being done in the interior to the pool. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the extent of the reconfiguration of that rooftop food and beverage outlet that runs along the diagonal of King Street. This shows the towers. There really isn't anything that's happening on the exterior of the building that would affect the outside from what's going on the inside. It's mostly going.
And we're right up in 20-minute mark, so
Okay.
including the marks.
I have, if I could just show one more slide, if you keep going, that works. This slide I think captures some of the more typical changes on the exterior. So the left is the existing. You can see the brick component that extends up through the mansard roof, where we're suggesting that a capco on top of that cupola, showing that all of the shutters would be replaced to be consistent throughout the property, and also with the proper hinging and hardware. The lower floor shows the canopies being replaced, the awnings being replaced from the green to the Charleston green or black. That's about it. Oh, and we're also asking for the dormers in the mansard to be things that are different color or sympathetic to the rest of the architecture. There's a few more slides, but I think that covers everything.
Very, very thorough. It's not a knock on your presentation. It's very thorough. Thank you. Remember the public hearing. Yes, ma'am.
Christina Dodd, 42 Hazel Street, member of the Southampton Association. Your rooftop area with the grazing area for the sheep up there, is there going to be a dining facility outside?
Am I allowed to answer that question now, or do I have to wait?
How about you answer that later? We'll follow
Sure.
up normal. And what normally happens to this is you as a member of the public certainly have a right to answer those questions. We usually get the applicant to do it during their response time. So we'll ask him to
Okay,
address
but
that
then I'll
question
finish my
momentarily.
sentence, which is if you are having something up there, if you would please, in your architectural design, have some sort of sound mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Other members of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda item. Ms. Finnegan.
Erin Williams, Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society would like to thank the applicant for meeting with us on several occasions to discuss plans for the building. While the Charleston Place has long been a landmark of our community, it certainly is a product of its time. And we are pleased to see the architectural enhancements being proposed, specifically opening up the corners at community meeting, widening the sidewalk and creating access points along Market Street, and modifying the motor court into a public plaza will create effective ground floor activation and a positive pedestrian experience. We do have just a few recommendations for continued study as this project moves forward. First, within the courtyard off Market Street, the rounded projecting windows feel out of character for Charleston's urban architecture. We would suggest resetting the windows with a geometric form to give it a more traditional, refined appearance. The added roof elements create a rather busy roof line, particularly as you look down King Street, which is seen on page 32. We would suggest simplifying the pyramidal roof forms over the vertical base throughout the building, and altogether removing the octagonal roof over the clock tower. It would be more successful to simply cap this form with a strong cornice. Overall, we are excited to see these meaningful improvements proposed for the significant structure, and look forward to working with the applicant as the project continues to develop. Therefore, we urge the board to move for conceptual approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finnegan. Further comments from the public on this agenda? Hearing none, city staff comments or recommendations?
No, it's understood, this is important, that the proposed alterations at the north side are on city-owned property. Therefore, these, along with sidewalk modifications on Market Street, will be under the purview of BRC. It's important that you understand the holisticness of the project, but items falling under BAR purview include the reconfiguration of the vehicle drop-off along Market Street into a pedestrian court, associated modifications at the ground level adjacent to the court, reconfiguration at the southeast and southwest corners of the building, the addition of 14 small hip roofs, introduce turret forms of cupolas, the modification of the clock tower at King Street, and color updates to the ground floor awnings, the addition of railings and canopies at the roof, which will be partially visible from the street. Right. Staff comment. Number one, staff is supportive of the work and finds most of the proposed to be welcomed updates, which will enhance and activate the street experience. Other proposed changes will provide a more complete appearance to some building elements. The replacement of the glass roof at the clock tower is a material downgrade, and the newly proposed roof is less unique, potentially less eye-catching. The intent is to make this singular element feel more cohesive with the overall existing and with other overall changes. Board should consider whether the tower at a terminated vista due to the bend in King Street deserves something unique or something that blends better with the overall composition. And if changes considered, what, if any, other design elements should be implemented. 2, the replacement of electric lanterns with glass lanterns is proposed, and the board has traditionally maintained the glass lanterns be reserved for use on buildings of a historic nature, so as not to create a false sense of history. Gas lanterns therefore should be omitted from the proposed work. And 3, I need to make this because I'm going to say this on the next two. And thanks for the reminder that if there are any architectural elements required as part of conditions related to new zoning or accommodation use, if those are going to be physical elements that can be seen, we do need to know about those.
Thank you, Ms. Parrish. A response from the applicant, and if they care to incorporate the question from the public.
Sure. roof plan, but what if not the, and thank you for all those comments. In response to the specific question about the rooftop bar, there is a rooftop food and beverage component on the roof currently, and what we're proposing is just an enhancement of the space that's there to make it a little architecturally pleasing. So I'm not sure that it would change the condition from what it is right now to something, we would call it worse or louder or whatever, but we can certainly take a look at acoustical efforts that might make it quieter, but it is a space that's already there in that function.
I think that answers the question. And any response to the city staff comments or recommendations?
No, we appreciate the comments.
Very good, thank you.
A quick question, just curiosity, where are the horses on?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, eventually. There's a movement afoot with the mayor and some city council and a few others to potentially get the horses to the Hampton Park where the original horse track in Charleston was. And so
They're not within the property.
that is right. It's not confirmed, nor have the details been worked out or announced publicly, but that's the plan.
Thank you for that. That's okay. Sounds like a good plan. I'm usually late to jump into my comments. First, to the extent it is even in our purview on the Port Share and the LA, I think that they're very successful. I think that's probably, in my opinion, that is the element that is ready to approve, and I would even hand that down to staff for final approval at this point. And you may not know about this, but there is a historic reference for that particular treatment. It reminded me of the Argyle Hotel, which was torn down in 1959 and had a facade that was covered in beautiful ironwork, including some that came out over the street. So you do, in fact, have an historical example there. And that will lead to my other comment, which is that the one reason I'm struggling with the conceptual approval on this is the tower treatment on the hinge on King Street. Just to put some background comments on this, the Charleston Place has been tremendous in the revitalization of Charleston, but it is a dated building. One of the things it suffers from, in my opinion, is a lack of depth in the facade all the way around, as well as some very watered down elements. Even though it has that mansard roof, there's just not a lot of detailing, and that's unfortunate for a building that is of the scale that it is. So I think overall your improvements add a lot of richness and detailing, considering the canvas that you have to work with. I also understand and agree that the glass cupola that's currently there is very dated and you need to replace that. The only concern I have is that I don't think this particular treatment of carrying that mansard element over, at least in this specific form, is successful. And I'd give you another historic example after that, which is 275 King Street, the old Church Israel building, which I'm told has the roof element still under some stuff that was tacked on in the 1940s. But it might be some inspiration for another area in the city with prominent elevation on King Street that was a hinge and that needed a successful roof treatment. You may decide that that's way too wild and those arcs for what you're willing to consider, but it might be an inspiration to be a little bolder, because I do think it's important, as Corey said, I think it's actually important for it to be a bolder element. And I'm not opposed to the cupolas, the added 14, I think you said, cupolas around to better finish off the roof. I understand that some people think it's busy, but I think overall it is a substantial improvement to what is there now. And I'd say the same thing with the 45-degree angle chamfers that activate those public spaces and will not be so awkward as they are right now with the steps coming in. Overall, I think it's very successful. I'm just struggling with conceptual approval based on the hinge element and current rooftop treatment on the clock tower. Other than that, I think it's a great presentation. Further report.
I would agree with the comments on the work chair. It makes a lot of improvement just to reverse the flow, but that is actually within DAR jurisdiction. You can see it from Meeting Street, and in fact, the DRC has jurisdiction on it. Does not preclude DAR.
We have concurrent jurisdiction.
That's right. Only in the public right of way does DRC alone have jurisdiction. Otherwise, this building wouldn't have had to suffer through BAR. I think all the improvements that are suggested here, or changes that are suggested here, are fine. One thing though about the King Street little clock tower is that at this point, after 30 some odd years, it now has character of its own. And yeah, it's of its time, but hopefully everything we're doing is of its own in some fashion. It just may not be fashionable at the present moment. And I actually think that the glass pyramid that's on there and the clock faces were a really intentional gesture by the architects that designed this facility to begin with, to acknowledge the bend that's in King Street and give us something to look at as we look southward. Now, if you have to make that whole thing taller for the sake of the stair, I think that's fine. But I really would advocate that we retain the glass, retain those clock faces in some fashion, even if you change the clocks out to be transparent faces, as if that was able to say. But otherwise, I think it was just fine.
I agree with that as well. It's always was nice to stand on the intersection of the moon and King and really to see just very urban approach to assemblies of buildings. So, and right now, the form of the pyramid, so to say, of the glass is actually echoing the new toilets. Much better with new toilets than the hat, sorry, which is there, you know. And in proportions have changed when you're adding the clock in circles working very well, you know, progressing to the glass roof. So either way, that's a really one element which and to me the tempering the corners is really successful and it's pedestrian friendly. The porta chair is interesting and that's 19th century. And things like that. Yes, we have kind of that one-star Victorian building, but that's Charleston. Anyway, improvements are made going in all the right directions and
Further board comments.
Sure. Mr. Chairman Lawrence, if you could go to page 13. This is meant to be somewhat entertaining.
I just want to be on the record as saying I'm disappointed that the chief law
So I want to point out is I have crepe myrtles all around my house, but it will look that way a couple of months ago. Not as funny as I thought. Page 30. I also like, I'm going to call it cupola in the spire. I kind of thought about the Addams Family when I saw that top piece coming out of it. But I did have my attention, which maybe that's the point, but I felt like it's also something I know everyone else likes, it, but maybe something that a little bit of attention I thought could be looked at also. The options, but those people I think like it. Page 34. So the cabana roof, I guess that becomes some type of steel or wood structure up there that's visible. And so, I'd like to see in the next round a picture, and I realize this is rendering, but that becomes very visible. That's visible detail that's not there now. Understand why it's there and proposed, but so I have some reservations about seeing the canopy structure out there from the street as you're walking down, and that is it definitely changes the E line, the roof line, the view going down to the street.
James, is that to say you'd like to see it minimized?
I would, but I'm going to go there and look at it tomorrow just to see. I didn't do that. Yes, I'd like to see it minimized. battered roof that's been a topic of the conversation now. My thought on it is just that it should be looked at. But right now, with all of the wonderful work that it is, it's really neat what you're doing. That seemed to be kind of plain, just without, and maybe that's what you're going with. But it caught me in the opposite direction as most everything else you did, which I think is great. I just didn't see it. What material are your shutters going to be made of? I don't really need that for this meeting, but I'll just.
Right, I mean, I would say we prefer them to be wood, but it would take a lot of maintenance, so we just need to look into something that doesn't get sun washed. Because that's one of the issues that they have right now, that they're just, is their color intensity in 5 years.
It's going to be challenging. And this is something that came up when we were meeting on site this past week. There's a parking lot directly across Main Street from that main entrance. There's not going to be a handicap access there. I mean, unless you're parking in that parking lot right across the street, you're going to pass the handicap access on either corner as you're coming down the street. So if they're there, it was pointed out also that there's not a walkway that's defined across Market Street. It's true, a lot of people cross there. I just wanted to be on the record that there's not a handicap access there, but there is one on each corner. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I would say the built-in public in the city, having, this is the public right away, SCDOT or the city to do something and for activating the environmental, that's a consideration.
Even though leveling out of that walkway is just coming from Main Street.
Further board comments?
I agree with everything that everyone has said this evening. In particular, Mr. Metters on the crepe myrtles, because I can hear my mother yelling at my dad right now while she's listening to this broadcast, talking about those crepe myrtles are not going to look that great the whole time. Additionally, the ADA accessibility, where Mr. Metters mentioned, I understand that's not necessarily my purview, but it concerns me that folks once they are midway down the block, there's that activation that they're not going to be able to access it. So please just consider that. Outside of that, everything else, are incredible improvements to the project or to the Charleston place. I will echo what everyone else has shared with the tower. I don't care so much about the glass pyramid, but the clock, I think, is really important to maintain in that block. It is an incredibly prominent access for the street, and so we need to maintain or reestablish that to anchor that portion of the block.
Just a quick one. That glass pyramid, maybe it's opportunity to introduce more iron work into those hands are still there. I also, it's not maybe our purview, but I'm concerned about the division between two levels of the sidewalk on Market Street with the landscaping.
From a maintenance perspective.
And again,
Introduce a motion for conceptual approval with board and staff comments, which I think have been consistent enough that they're actionable. Is that
We have a motion and a second for conceptual approval incorporating board and staff comments. It's in proper order, so I'll go ahead and go. Mr. Brown, how do you vote? Mr. Metters? Ms. Socha? Mr. White? And myself, yeah, in favor. Work on that tower, but I think it's a really good project.
Thank you.
General architect for direction.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies. Nice to meet you. I'll reach out to you. Yes.
They, I said they sent it July 5
Oh,
already,
okay.
so you
That's
should
what I
have
have.
it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Looks like
Mr. Brown will return momentarily. He's charging ahead. We'll move ahead with agenda item 5, number 19.
On the west side, District J, 525. City District, requesting conceptual approval for the renovation of the existing office building for hotel. This is the location, and it's to the east, the parking garage, and the building wasn't in the master building. And that is the building that we're looking at. We are ready to go.
Good evening, Representative Applicant Richard Ellison, a Raven Architect. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to 19 Hated Renovation. This is your initial look at this project. And you can jump straight into, I think you went over I think the story where we are. I think it's a pretty familiar site. There's a tall building district up here with office building and next day apartments next to us. There's a Holiday Inn Express here in our front yard. And where it existed, 10-story office building with adjoining parking deck to the north. Next slide. Next slide. And our existing tower, I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that this office tower is about the same age as me, I think. Which is to say it's been around a while. And it's got elevator and stair towers strapped onto the south side of the building. Otherwise, it's a rectangular extrusion. We are going to be proposing taking that elevator and 2 stairs, demolishing those off the south face of the building and relocating those within the interior of the building. So that's a change to the math. We think it's going to be even better. It's going to replace what are now blank months with windows. Next slide. Aerial view of how you get to the tower off of Hageley. So that's a service access drive. Service drive is actually to the north of the parking deck, which is drive is to the south. That comes into this development. The overall development takes you through to the office tower and onto the apartments. We're going to maintain that entrance drive. Probably change we'll split it so that it goes high-low. We've got to get up to an elevated lobby because of the flood zone that we're in. So you'll see in the site plan that we're proposing having a bypass lane and then a drop-off lane that goes up to the door. We're not proposing raising or lowering the existing lobby level. We're going to regrade the entrance drive up to the lobby. Next slide. For the ground level floor plan, so office buildings in general are challenging to convert to hotels at times because they're not proportioned the way a hotel is. They're generally a lot thicker. That's not the case with this one. This one is actually very well adapted to a hotel conversion. It's got a 28-foot column spacing that works just right for 2 guest rooms. The overall thickness is a little thick for a hotel, but not by much. So we've got room on the interior to relocate the elevators and the stairs. Our ground level, you can see the entrance drive coming in off the pavement, then splits in 2, goes up to the front door just for a drop off, and then continues on in the development. We are proposing addition of a ground level swimming pool at the southwest corner. The surface parking lot over there to the east is to remain, and the parking deck is to remain. and that's our primary. So you'd come in and drop off at the front door, continue on around to the parking deck and then the west. The lobby and primary public areas of the hotel are located planned right into the south. So, and that's what you're going to see as you come in off the patio is the glass facade of the dining room and the main entrance. Right. We are proposing eliminating portions of it's a 12-foot first floor, and then I think it's 10 foot from there on up. We're going to create a double height lobby for part of that, and I think you'll see that in the renderings as you come up. Taller glass expression to that corner. If you go to the next slide, the typical floor shows how we're arranging it. Where you'll see that the guest rooms sort of go out to the face of the existing building where we have a stairwell or an elevator. But then we're going to pop them back in, so they go in and out and create these vertical slots of balconies. And that's us using that extra width and power that we don't necessarily need to creating balconies with that extra depth. And that also affects the general mass of the building. I'll explain that when we get to the rendering. That's our typical floor. This is the top level. We are proposing a bar, restaurant, a food and beverage venue at the top level. That's not on top of the building. That's actually within the volume of the existing building, but at the top level on the west side. That's that gray area to the left. Right. And that's okay. And I'm including the elevations. We are not proposing making the building any taller than it is. So we're going to keep the parapets up there that helps bring mechanical equipment, but that's just the same strategy that we have in place right now. We are, we're right next to another tall building that's about a few feet shorter than we are, but we're not going any taller. Next slide. This is an aerial view of the site, showing the mass of our neighbors, the mass of the Holiday Inn in front of us. That's McDonald's on the corner, and there's our tower there rendered. Here's the main view from Haygood as you come up Haygood, looking at it from the front, and you can see on the first story at the ground level. That two-story small addition to the front is our two-story lobby and breakfast room, dining room, and that's mostly glass with some external solar control. And then as you look up the tower, you'll see how when the guest rooms move in and out, that's how we get those two slots of balconies that help break that. Otherwise, what was an undifferentiated mass of the building up into we're cutting back the roof at the top level to help continue that expression all the way to the sky. That actually breaks up the roof line as it moves to the sky, as well as at the front corner facing Haygood, we're going to have guest rooms that are turned, so we're creating an end cap so that we've got glazing facing Haygood. There will be a side of a guest room there that has to be dealt with. The extent of renovations of this building, we understand, are going to probably require the addition of lateral bracing within the existing structure that will bring it up to seismic code. So that tends to create these areas of windowless that can't be internalized. They have to go on the outside. We typically put them on the sides of guest rooms. That may create a corner right there where I'm proposing a change in color, perhaps a change in material, an elevated material there on the corner. That would probably be where we would initially locate, primary building signage up there. Tonight, we're not going to dive too much into what that material is. We're looking for IC on that, but I wanted to give you a preview of where our thought process is headed. One more slide. I did include a view looking back at the building, as you can see further north on Haygood. Looking back at it over the parking deck, but the back side is rendered more or less the same as the front. I appreciate your attention.
Very good presentation, thank you. Public, members of the public who should be heard on this agenda. Anyone? Yes, sir.
I am the CEO of the West Edge Foundation. I'm also a resident of Charleston on Willow Street. As the CEO of the foundation, West Edge Foundation, as you probably are aware, we're kind of stewards of the West Edge District. And such, we're invested in what happens in West Edge. The district was created with a vision. It was also created with a master plan, and West Edge Foundation is the steward of that master plan. The vision and master plan, but West Edge was also not created with design guidelines, intentionally not to usurp the authority of the board. So in terms of design review, you are the design review for West Edge, and on this project as well as any other project. As I mentioned, we're very invested in the progress at West Edge. We're very eager for this building to go through renovation and transformation. We do have some concerns. Some of those are precipitated in part because there will be no engagement with the architects on this project. Some of these concerns probably could have been addressed had that engagement happened. First and foremost, District Drive is actually a public street. As a part of West Edge, the street that runs in front of now from Haygood into West Edge is through an easement, a city street. It's going through the dedication process right now. But as a city street, we want to make sure that every building within West Edge, as it should be in all of Charleston, addresses the street in an urbane fashion. This is not an access road to a hotel anymore, or to an office building. Street, and so the building has to acknowledge that, the design of it has to acknowledge that, and the layout of the street is going to have to acknowledge that. And I don't know what level of engagement has happened with the city, but the alignment currently proposed is actually outside of the existing easement, so that's also a concern. We've invested heavily in the quality of public realm in West Edge, and we'll continue to do so, and so we hope this will be able. We're concerned that the parking deck is going to be unimproved. It's as much an eyesore as the building is today. And we're very disappointed that no effort to address the parking deck as is too unfortunately illustrated in this image. We certainly are concerned about materials. We really want to make sure that whatever happens is the building improves upon what was there. Many will say that this building was an eyesore from the start. It certainly is an eyesore today. We want to make sure that what happens to this building makes it an asset to the community, to West Edge, and to the west side from here forward, so that we look forward to the transformation happening. But we certainly encourage your review of this to make sure that that's there.
Thank you. Further public comments on this agenda? Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendations?
Okay. Number one, for conceptual review, we are studying the height, scale, mass, and general architectural direction. Related to this proposed renovation, we will concentrate on massing changes and general architectural direction. The proposed massing changes benefit the building, transforming one large flat mass into 3 more vertical forms connected by recessed portions. 2, regarding the general architectural direction, the design team has made all the right initial moves. Yet staff finds that the proposed is somewhat static and a more prototypical formulation, which could use the inclusion of additional or adjusted elements to create more visual interest. This next layer of design is potentially alluded to at the base, where more interesting elements are introduced. The design is promising, and staff would like to see how visual interest is incorporated at the preliminary review. And 3, the proposal includes the use of fiber cement panels on the majority of the exterior, which typically do not dominate large peninsula projects. While only horizontal joints are shown on the end walls, for instance, board must consider how the panel joints, if approved, will be visible. Staff recommends omitting the fiber cement panels. And 4, the design team should begin considering signage, which will need to be incorporated into the architecture of the building and not just be a corporate style tap and cake. We are recommending conceptual approval with board and staff comments.
Thank you, Katie. Any response from the applicant? City staff comments or public comment? Don't have to, you don't want. Good, Mr. Bennett?
I'm Michael Bennett,
Yes,
the
sir.
owner. We haven't addressed the garage yet, but we will be improving the garage. And I should know this, but I thought we owned the road and we were putting an easement through the road, it obviously has to meet the city requirements and we'll be doing all those things.
Maybe to answer that question.
Yeah, you could.
We normally don't allow that, but in this case, I think we will give you a position.
When the project, through an agreement with the medical university before it was sold, an easement was placed across the site for a public right-of-way. So Mr. Bennett, having purchased from MUSC, does own, if you will, the dirt, but it is an easement across there for a public street.
For public use, yeah.
But I think the point was that we didn't buy that with it, and it's gonna be a public easement.
It is a
Yeah.
public easement today.
Are we approaching on that?
No, and I don't think the status of that road is within the purview of this board. I think that anything related to conceptual approval, height scale, mass, general architectural direction is what is before us tonight. I think to your point earlier, and some of the comments from our gentlemen from the public, the street activation of this property, we've been talking about a lot. I think that's probably relevant to preliminary review, at least as I'm understanding it. While that question on the exact legal status of this easement or right-of-way is clarified.
I'm sorry. So we'll be careful with taking action moving forward, this board, something can't be built.
Correct.
That's not, it's not good. We just got the information we got, and the actual information we got, whether it's accurate or not.
That's right, and they're related to what we would do in a conceptual review. I would say that because Mr. Metters asked me before the meeting about, there's concern about having met with the community group, and it sounds like there's maybe people not making contact in that regard. I don't think that that's a basis for a denial or deferral, nor am I suggesting that. What I would say is that just on that specific issue, it sounds like a lot of mutual benefit will take place if the West Side Foundation and Mr. Bennett and the applicants had the opportunity to sit down. And I think, to your point, some of those concerns you have probably get worked out. Moving to what is before us tonight, this is a massive improvement on a building that, I forget what the name of the prison is in New York City, that looks eerily like this building. So I think you've done a great job. And it's really nice that you're able to work with an existing structure as opposed to completely demolishing it. It's actually a remarkable transformation. We're not talking about a change in height to an existing building. I think the massing is probably most relevant to tonight's discussion, and this is a great improvement, getting rid of the exterior shafts, great new fenestration. I appreciate what the applicant had to say about the roofing and the facade. I would like to understand in more detail the solar mitigation features on the first two floors, but we can get there in preliminary, as well as this consideration about the streetscape. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal now, but I think in 20 years, maybe less, probably will be a big deal as this whole area transforms, and it's worth considering now, just like, as I know Mr. Bennett knows from another application, we have to consider how the low line factors into things that are now on the spine of the city, and so just, I think this whole area is going to be transformed, and we're considering what the pedestrian experience is going to be like. I think some of these issues regarding materials, I think Ms. Parrish would agree with me, can get worked out preliminary for down the road. And a new change that is relevant to the applicant today is this signage issue has become significant for us. And so to the extent you're not familiar with it and the new policies we have in that regard, jumping on that now will save you a lot of problems down the road, just to be clear about that. Our new policies are sometimes dramatically affecting people's expectations, so familiarize yourself with those policy changes. And I'll be quiet. Further, other board comments?
I find it rather astonishing that anybody's trying to do anything with this piece of garbage building. I'm sorry to put it that way, but everybody knows it's the case, and it's a heroic effort. I think that it's important, though, when we look at a renovation like this, how do we assess it if this was proposed to be built from scratch? And I'm afraid that while you have gone to some heroic lengths, and you will go to further heroic lengths just to meet the building code with the renovation of this magnitude, I'm afraid you ran out of lipstick. And I mean that in the best of cases, I think you've done a great job with what you had to work with, but it's insufficient for such a prominent location. And I have some concerns about the way the building meets the street too. Like, it has a very suburban arrangement of a pool right by the sidewalk, and there's probably going to be a 7-foot fence there, and that's problematic for an area that's intended to urbanize, aggressively urbanize. I'm not sure what advice to give you, but I don't think the renovation goes far enough to alleviate the oppressive blandness of this building. It's just in the bones of the thing. And I'm not sure how you're going to, what you've done to me is not a.
Absolutely, thank you. What is now, I arrived in this city 40-some years ago, and I thought it's a prison, honestly. But, and keep looking at it and thinking, oh my God, when is finally will be approached, and here we are. At the same time, looking at what we have seen coming on board and coming in that area, different very interesting buildings along this Bank Street, and whatever, another hotel. This one is kind of an alternative. It's not enough detail. It is static. It is kind of trying to deal with what you have already there and improve it. So, and materials obviously is, I've never seen interesting size of the building like that. And work. So, further study, I think, is needed. Yes, psychology is reach. This is enough ins and outs and claim this as a nice looking hotel, particularly the height of the building. It's very visible. Despite what will be around, it still will be visible. And approaching the street and rival pool on the suburban, exactly suburban corner, it's not going to work well with the public street. That's all I have to say.
Further more comments?
It's still a mess. Back about the Marriott Hotel on the interstate, and ultimately, that what had to be done to that to retrofit it seismically. And I would guess that you don't want to spend a lot of money on this without having some exterior of the building. From a height scale, and mess could change as a result of that seismic retrofits on the exterior of the building. I think that's important to have some indication of the effect that they may have. That's hard. I've actually had to think through that. But,
I have a question for that one. How many stories is this again?
10.
Okay.
And I see a hand up, Mr. Bennett?
Yeah, Joe, you know, we bought the building from MUSC as a building, not as, with the intention of renovating it. And I agree with many of the comments, but it does seem like that would be in a preliminary meeting, you all have to approve on, this is what it's gonna look like. There's an existing building that we're gonna take the spin off and change it, so I don't know that y'all would have plenty of time to take that out of the apple as we come back to you. look at the structure is there, and we intend to use the structure. And the street in front is private, it's private, right on the street, and we're gonna put a public easement through it, there's no question about that. I don't think that's been done yet, to my knowledge.
Yes, it has.
It is already done. Yeah, so, thank you for correcting me on that. But again, it seems to me that the comments are at a preliminary level, not at the height scale and mass. I have an existing building that I'm going to transform.
Thank you.
Do we include the architectural directions?
You can do a certain height, scale, mass, and general architectural directions.
And the changes to the facades do have implications on the scale and the massing of the building. The only thing that's absolutely fixed at the present time is the height of the building. Everything else is under purview, and everything that's been discussed so far, in my experience, is well within bounds of conceptual review.
I'll retreat my position saying that I thought the mass was, but certainly is architectural. There's certainly stuff with height.
You're right.
That's not possible to change. And scale, of course, is relative to things that are around it. And right now it's kind of it has become in an island. It was for them. Further board comments? If not, is there a motion?
I will introduce a motion.
You think about that? I'll introduce. Or you just formulate a motion?
Yeah, I'll introduce a motion for deferral for board and staff comments, and with further study of the implications, the architectural implications of a seismic record.
So, Mr. White, as I understand it, your motion is for a deferral incorporating board and staff comments, and also for understanding this seismic, the impact of the seismic retrocet on the project.
The architectural implications. Yeah, I don't want to confuse the purview here. It's just really whether that, to James's point, whether that would have an impact on the project.
That's Mr. White's motion. Is there a second? Mr. Metters seconds. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yea, in favor.
Mr. Metters? Ms. Socha? Mr. White? Yeah. And myself, yeah, in favor. Look forward to working through this with the applicant and getting some unanswered questions answered. Thank you. Okay, very good. Number 6, Hanson Street. I'm sorry, number 2, Hanson Street. Item number 6.
Right, 2 Hanson Street, this one is construction. In the High District, 3.5, and in the Old and Historic District. The applicant is requesting conceptual approval for a new hotel development. This is the location. This is the view into the site from Hanson Street.
Bellow.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Eddie Bellow, Telegraph Architect. Also have Mr. Leslie here with our office, Lucky Architect. So a little bit of background on this project and the one following this. These hotel sites were approved by EPA back in the late 2015. Are still approved. So what's a little bit confusing is we're under the old high district and we've got some other restrictions that I'll explain. All of that in a while. The designs for those PCA we are not starting over PCA approval. We're just starting. All right, so Hanson Street, next slide, and I will try to go faster. I will try not to go over. A couple things. We did look at the site, so I think most people know the block has a quality bakery on it that took over most of the site. So here is Anson and North Market, Palmetto Brewery, which is across the street. Our site right here is kind of interesting. There were two tenement buildings that right next to each other. That was an aerial of the site. A couple of things to point out. Right now, it's just a large parking lot. Goes across the street, it's a gigantic parking lot, and then further across the street are some fairly nondescript buildings that are temporary. We are sandwiched in Alter Fit, the Anson restaurant, and then right here, start buildings, Henry's Bar. But those two buildings are right on our northern and southern. Textual images, that's Henry's, the bright purple building there, and the right. Parking lot is there. Next slide. Right. Okay, so this is you go back to that last one. So the site plan, this is showing the entire block, in yard. The reason this is important is this is our hotel. I'm going to show this one next. Valet drop off for our hotel here shares and egress to regulars. This was what was previously the PCA. That's not changes. Two hotels are two separate buildings, two separate operations. The property is the only. So the ground level, first floor, we have a lobby, and then we have this product, and then a coffee restaurant bar down the bottom. And so one of the key things that I want you to remember when I get to the elevations is we intentionally set up this sort of symmetrical facade where we've got first nose pulled forward, and then the two wings are pushed back. That's for a couple of reasons. One, to sort of diminish the bar access. We don't want that up on the street. That's outdoor dining area. Also to kind of really set up a formal presentation on the about what's there now, especially across the street. We thought a real formal presence was needed. Next slide. Now I'll go through the floor plans fairly quickly. Parking behind, construction of mechanical and official area. Next slide. So the upper floors are about as efficient as you can get for hotel rooms. That red line there is the height district that we're in compliance with. It actually is 50 feet on the top part of that and 35. Don't have any mechanical on the roof. Next slide on. Or our mechanical is either on these lower portions or within the building. Okay, so like we do on all of our projects, we looked at the context for inspiration, and of course, Hansonboro is a wonderful neighborhood, a wonderful context to draw from. One of the things that I've always been struck by Hansonboro is beautiful brick buildings. There's a fire in 1838 that wiped out most of Hansonboro, and then, and so a lot of these buildings built in the mid-1800s are just these beautiful masonry buildings. So we are that. And then this building has just always been one of my favorites. It's on the corner of Hazel and Anson. Just always was struck by that storefront. We're closer at the brick. Again, if you walk around there, it's just handsome brick work, and it's just part of the character of the brick, it's sort of a high style. We had a lot of money. We like that. Of course, you see how the cornices are. We like that 45 degree. It's great to see that all over the next slide. And then also, just like everywhere else in Charleston, there's a lot of ironwork. Like more this year, maybe it's just the way the streets are laid out, but the ironwork in this. Detail on top right, a little like, okay, so here's the facade. So a couple of things we did. So this is brick. It's a very light brick, and to sort of break it down, we have this reveal, which is that 45-degree brick detail kind of reinterpreted in a different way. Did that for a couple of reasons. One, to sort of recall the pair of tenement buildings that used to be there. But also, it helps break down the proportions so they're more vertical, which is my point of view of Charleston. And like I said before, we set up this big formal mass and then have these two lines to break down the massing, but also so we hide the columns, have a place to sit and eat. We lowered the cornice instead of having it really high, we brought it down. Street. Our storefront is very grand. This is 15 feet high. Very simple. Kind of recalls the building that I showed you on Hazel and Manson. Canopy. And then what we have here, and it'll show up better in a couple of other slides, we have this laser cut screen that we literally took some photos of the ironwork and traced over it and made a pattern, but did not want to so directly imitate it. And so we took that and put another layer of a pattern to make it a little bit more abstract and a little more transparent. You see that a little bit more. But in the last couple of things that we did, you can't see here, but we took, so that this brick will have that Flemish bond, but it will have every so often, not every single bond. Because one of the bricks will be forward of the face about 1/4 of an inch. The idea is that you see it just when you walk up. The last thing, there's a lot of stuff going on. The last thing is around each one of these windows, we have this very thin thing that also comes out forward of the face of the brick. And it's just setting where it ought to be. The idea behind that is we want this to be very, very crisp and clean, very, very simple. This also does face west, and so a little bit of solar help with shade there would be good. Next slide. Next slide. Good and proposed. So here's the street level. Again, very simple. Again, activates the street. You would see through that laser panel inside at night. There's a soft glow would come out. On, which again, iron. We also use the same pattern. Balconies, one have a few balconies to the This view, of course, you'll never see this, but it's important. We're really close to the restaurant here. So we have to set back to get these windows in. This is a metal panel material, but everything else is that brick. So at the top, I'm out of time.
You need an extension?
I'm going to go quick. I'll go quick.
You're fine.
All right, so this is the north elevation. I think it's important to see this. That's the line of the valley in between, I don't think. You'll see it, but it's not super visible. This project is really all about our amphitheater. Next slide. This is the facade you'll never see because it faces west and it'll be a big hotel. Actually, next slide. Obviously, this is conceptual, so we've got some development to do. We want to make sure this is right, but we're super excited about how subtle, but so that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bellow. Any public comment on this agenda? Okay, I see several folks. This gentleman, yes, sir. Everybody will state their name and address for you.
My name is Ty Hamlin, and I'm the managing partner of 241, 243 East Bay Street, which is situated opposite side of King Yard Street from where this hotel will be, almost. It's, I'm sure you're all probably familiar with the parking lots that are behind the buildings on North Market Street that here from function facility there and several small retail. And then Raper's Alley intersects with North Market there and connects over to Ginyard Street. And so we're kitty corner away from that, right next to the red line. So we're impacted by this in a couple of ways. However, what happened in this particular situation, aside from the property that we own on the opposite side, is that we acquired to have a say in what will be constructed on parcels. And I think we're premature in this situation now for raise a whole lot of issues, but there are several that this is, Eddie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the frontage that's shown here is what street?
Anson.
Anson. So we're in the back, and
Lawrence, could we go to
down the side. So
Would that be helpful?
yes. This is Anson Street, and this is Ginyard Street over here. And our project, if you go back to that last one. We got it right here. This parcel here is one that we have a deed restriction on. And basically what you see is a park that has been illustrated, and it's supposed to extend 115 feet by 25 feet. And we have been in contact with the present owner and someone in contact with Mr. Bellow. Basically, all we're trying to do is build a park there. And we don't want any impediment to preclude that from being a green space. One greenest space on the street in Charleston that has no other. So, basically, I just wanted to alert you all to the fact that we have that deed restriction. We have several others. The only other concern we really have with the development is that the two hotels are using a single access in and out of the garage. We don't think is a good practice. Basically, again, it comes out right here. We did have one issue, which I think we've cleared, in that after agreeing to this incumbent over here, we designed two transformers in that space. Obviously, in green space, we don't want two transformers. So, I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time, but that's issue, and I just wanted you all to be aware of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon.
Thank you.
Further public comment on this? Yes, ma'am.
You had 42 pages, we also on the board, kind of, from what I've seen, it does not appear as though there's, the restaurant is ground level. I'd like to say, from my perspective, being their neighbor, I appreciate the brick and the attention to detail and how you're incorporating Amsterdam along that realm. But as I remember from years ago, this property has a sister hotel that's part of it, a 250-room hotel, share or whatever, a restaurant and so forth. If at any point they decide restaurant, we would like to go on record as saying that architectural design, some sort of sound mitigation, primarily like was done at the old on what was the name of it? Anyway, where they put glass panels around the top of it, and they worked with us, put glass panels around, and no noise after 11 o'clock, no amplified noise. So if that were to come about, it's actually the Dewberry, that excuse me, that wasn't Dewberry, it was, I think it was the Bohemian. It's changed hands several times. So, but that would be what we would like, no noise mitigation, no noise, but, I'm sorry, noise mitigation, no noise after 11, and no amplified noise. Thank you very much.
Ms. Further members of the public wishing to be heard on this agenda. Ms. Minigan.
I'm the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society appreciates the applicant meeting with us to review the proposed hotel plans. Generally, we feel this is a very positive, straightforward approach to a design that follows the PAR principles for new construction, specifically the use of unified elements that create harmony in the facade, subtle hierarchy of the fenestration, authentic high-quality materials, and details that reference Charleston's unique character and create a tactile and visual experience are all welcome. Therefore, we are pleased to lend our support for conceptual approval and look forward to seeing the project progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minigan. Further public comment? Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendations.
I want to echo, but if there are any physical elements that will be visible from the public right of way that will be required as part of any conditions by zoning or accommodations, these will need to be reviewed and brought to our attention. All right, staff comments. Just another note related to height, the proposed project has zoning compliance, is the way we understand it. All right, number one, related to height, scale, and mass, we recommend lowering the recessed northwest corner to be a 3-story portion to be more sympathetic to the adjacent building and to allow the main body to be the most dominant feature against Anson Street. While the pedestrian experience on Anson is broad, transparent, and engaging, consider how a version of the vertical element extending to grade or an allusion to such in the glass pattern may be more sympathetic to context to give more vertical proportions. Related to general architectural direction, the mix of masonry, brick treatment, and decorative metal offer a nice relationship and provide an attractive layering to the project. Keeping the balconies on the recessed portions is appropriate for hierarchy on the Anson facade. It's important that the perforated decorative screen remain recessed, and board should weigh in if there is feedback on the pattern for the perforated screen. Staff recommends that the pattern implement a stronger relationship with the custom imagery. Continue the aluminum cornice around the 3rd floor around the southeast corner of the building in order to terminate at a wall. While never fully visible, the building is clad in brick with the minor protrusions and recesses in metal panels. At the north and south elevations where metal panel is proposed, study the addition of a simple top trim element to give us a simple top or conclusion to these facades. At the north elevation, the narrow vertical brick portions offer visual interest to the facade. However, this facade could use additional study that utilizes perspectives to demonstrate what will be visible from Ginyard and Raper's Alley. Concerns over the block walls at the east elevation should be considered in light of another hotel project, and that these are connected at grade through a parking system. This is an inherent guarantee that the solid block walls will not be visible. Nevertheless, any concern can be conditioned in their approval. And last, primary building exterior materials need to wrap the interior of the valet drop-off with an appropriate ceiling and specialty pavers. We're recommending conceptual approval, incorporating board and staff comments.
Mr. Bello, you have the opportunity to respond both to the city or any of the information we received.
Okay, well, thank you. Ms. Dodd, there are no, without bars on this one or the next one, don't worry. And that's the zoning thing, we'd have to get zoning approval, and you could come and talk about that, and I'd be with you. So none of that's on there, so you're in good shape. Okay. So a couple things. So there is this sort of legal agreement that we have to adhere to for this property. Really, it's really for the next property. That has nothing to do with the VAR. It has nothing to do with your purview. It has to do with my client and Mr. Hamlin. That's something that we will work out. We sent them something in January. We just heard back today. So that's why that. Also, most of this comments had to do with the other projects. So a couple things. We second what Ms. Minnigan said. Those were always good to hear. The two comments that I wanted to reference from the city are, number one, if you go back to Lawrence, which was recessing. Actually, let me just go to that. That's good. What suggested is basically cutting off this floor. So we don't want to do that. We lose a room, but it's huge. So aesthetically, you know, this is the height it is because this is a lower height district. Here, just like we have to, we're trying to get as much as we can. If you lower this, it's still going to be asymmetrical. And that what's important is this. That there's not that much to gain from cutting off an entire corner. Now, there's already there. Maybe it doesn't have a balcony. Nothing to mitigate it, but we would ask that that not be something the board pick up. The second thing is something that I've already argued with the board about before. Well, no, Mr. Metters brought it up. We are not indifferent about our design. We spent a lot of time on it. And so, I think y'all know that. And so this is very intentional. It's not there for a reason. We don't want to bring it all the way down. Now, maybe there, and that's just our design. That is a very intentional way of doing things. I don't want to crash into this. You know, I don't want to do it. So now there may be things, and so this design comment. It may be something in the canopy. There's a seam there. There's something that addresses Tori's and Lawrence's concerns, but those are two that I think we want to kind of respond. The other comments I think are all really good comments. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bello. And I do want to make clear, I was Mr. Hamlin's concerns, and this is to be clear to you, Mr. Hamlin, I'm not minimizing those. Mr. Bello's response that in terms of what's the purview of this board is pretty restricted, but no, Mr. Bello has to do with their legal obligations related to that. I'm sure he'll be taken care of. Thank you, but thank you in any case for keeping that. Who wants to go first?
I agree with what the Preservation Society had to say about it, and I also agree with those counterpoint to staff comments. The staff comments 3 through 8 are appropriate. I think the project is off to a very elegant start, and we should let it proceed.
I'm totally on board with that as well. It is elegant, it speaks to the context in a modern way. I don't think that middle brickwork line needs to go through. It's actually very well balanced in two sides. I also don't think that the left-hand side, what it says, is already speaking to lower buildings around, and it's enough counterbalances what is happening on the right-hand side, which is a different issue. Even so, it's the recess is the same, but they are different functions. And it seems like you're looking at it and it's horizontal, but it's actually really vertical structure looking at it because the size of the windows and the brick solid elements in between, so that's
Sure, Mr. Chairman. It's something that helped me get through a problem I was having just now, so thank you. It was, you set me up for this. I wasn't sure I would have said it if you had. The precedent photos you show are some of all of our favorite buildings. They're extraordinary work. And Lula says, it speaks in that context within a modern way. I will tell you that those are some of my favorite buildings also, and one of the reasons that they're distinctive is because of the reveals that they leave. The ironwork that you showed is substantial ironwork. And if I contrast that though with the laser cut rail system or infill system, in the past 4 or 5 years, we've had several systems like that that were not successful, regardless of what we were trying to digitally scan and recreate and expand or contract, and they cut it out. It hadn't worked. And, so I appreciate your precedent. Your precedent set a very, very high standard, even when you're trying to complete it in a modern way. And when I look at the building, I'm not sure that I really had anything to say until I saw your precedent. And then you set this high bar, and I then began to look at the balconies coming off the two left and right, and the north and south flanks. And the masonry work. And I realize I'm getting ahead of this, and that's a misconception. But you brought me there, right? And so as you're planning that next step, those are big shoes, and there's no doubt that you can do that. But I mean, my vote for conceptually is anticipating it's really going to reflect those precedents that you showed, which is great.
Thank you.
Brian? I think overall it's a fantastic project. The southern flank to me just looks like it's almost forgotten. I don't know what, I mean, design let you have at it, but I understand the height district changes, but it looks almost unfinished to me, and I don't know what I would change. And then the screening, I understand that that's going to be reflected on the other hotel that is also connected to this project. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do understand the contemporary style that we're trying to go for here. So, but overall, I think that's.
I know you're very passionate about your projects, Mr. Bellows, so don't take this the wrong way. I like everything about this project, conceptually, height, scale, and mass, general architectural direction, with the singular exception of looking at the cap and whether you think you need a little thicker parapet. I understand what you have before.
You're talking about the very, very top?
At the very, very top. Just restudy, certainly not a general architectural direction is great. And to do some help there, you may not think this exemplar set applies, it's not a good one. I was thinking about the massing on this, it's kind of like the Berlantz building, and it has a little heavier cap, just to consider. Otherwise, I think it's great.
Next time, we also get a rendering of looking up the street towards Anson from North Fargo.
Yeah. So it would be on the left.
No, it would be on the right. So.
So looking south.
Yeah. So your back is towards North Fargo. This is on the right.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. And you were talking about the west wall, and you said don't worry about it because the building's going to be there. You're assured both of them will be built at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, what I mean, because otherwise it's.
Sure. What, yes, it has to, but if there were something that were happening and one was built without the other, then the assumption is we have to come back and do it again. But the plan is they have to be built together.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking.
And you may strongly disagree, but at conceptual, I still feel like we're fine.
I'm only asking these questions because it's easier for us.
That's fine, and he's thoughtful and thought down. It's okay. Any further board comments? Not a motion.
I'll introduce a motion for conceptual approval with board comments and then staff comments 3 through 8.
So your motion is for conceptual approval, incorporating staff comments, 3 through 8, and board comments.
That's correct.
Is there a second? Ms. Sochan? Okay. The motion is in order. Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yea in favor.
Mr. Metters? Yea. Ms. Sochan? Mr. White? Yea. And myself, yea in favor. Thank you. Keep turning and burning. And item number 7.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, brief break.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
Somebody else might want to.
He's got to be following along somewhere.
Here with, consider supporting Richard on hot power and.
I was trying to listen in on the YouTube channel.
One day.
It would help.
It's just tough when you get in a situation because of extensions or refusals, you have 3 people.
Make it a pretty big.
Good job on the last presentation. Hopefully you don't take too much.
This was good. No, those are good comments. It's structural.
That's why they get
All right, board His beard's better than mine.
I gotta give him some.
The grade gives me.
It'll be real quick.
I understand.
You can take them off.
We're pretty close.
That's what I tell you. If you want to go home, I was gonna say, you can do that. You feel free to say it again. I'm just gonna say it.
And it's easy, that's what people, Oh, really? Oh, well,
I'd rather the kids will use it and hopefully it'll go better.
That's the house, that's that.
well, that's very, very good for us.
Yeah, I won't even.
Okay, nice to meet you.
I still think we have to click.
Well, no, this is live. Oh, you're clicking. I just made a note of myself to not sit.
We heard about why we don't have it.
No.
Applicant got mad.
Well, I will donate this one. That's the honest reason why we don't have it. They're not in business.
It's interesting. Well, I just was saying, if you were waiting just to say it again, you can go.
Go take a place. I got to be back at 8:30 tomorrow. Night, so. Great project. I'm just
It is. Yeah, we gotta go down the road at 5:30. I have to go back to the office for a while. Charlotte, we have a firm-wide gathering. I'm supposed to be there today. This was a great excuse not to have to. Here, actually. Team building with, oh no.
So you got all these.
Or DAR.
Okay, ready to go. Agenda item number 7, 40 through 46, what?
Is,
Tori goes first.
he's so eager.
This one is also new construction in the Height District 3.5, in the old historic district. All right, what context do we have? We're requesting conceptual approval for a new hotel project. Just to the east of the site we just reviewed. And it also fronts North Market Street. Remember Market, the last meeting, we reviewed the demo request on this one, and we are preserving the front facade with some reconfiguration of those openings. Okay, now.
Eddie Bello again with Bello Green Architects, also our office. So I might take a little bit longer on this one. I'll try not to, I'll go fast. This is a little more complicated because we're working with existing historic buildings, sites large and a little more complexity to it. Next slide. Same site as the last one, nothing super informative. There used to be the old Taylor's home, which was a boarding house here. It collapsed at some point, and then sometime in the early 1900s, the rental market structure warehouse, sort of market area was built. Since then, it underwent a lot of alterations for fabric production. And like Paris said 2 weeks ago, we got approval for demolition of everything to the south facade. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Next slide. Thanks to take away here. The front Rachel's Alley, again, these historic buildings are still costing sacred, are part of our project, and we're retaining all of those, of course. All the way to Ginyard Street, which Mr. Hammond talked about last. Next slide. Just to touch on this, like I said last time, for this one, again, these are zoning issues, but just so you understand. Valet drop-off is here for this hotel. The valet drive goes through and underneath this hotel, and then parks underneath the lounge. Next slide is also EDA issues here. So just contextual images. Next slide. We'll see this from down that top left there, that shows downstate. Next slide. This again, this is still concentrated. It's a beautiful brick building. Market. Our changes proposed here are minimal. It's just really restoration, typical preservation thing. We are cutting the door in where there's a window now for egress. And overall, that'll just be restored. So, next slide. Some other side photos. Okay, so this slide is intended to get you guys thinking a little bit about commercial streets. Broad Street, most of King, and Meeting State is a pretty strong fabric. There's pretty strong character, right? Think about the market, and we all know the market. It's another commercial area that's unique for Charleston, right? It's very different, and we spent a lot of time walking around the market, and took all these photos, and I just started thinking, this is what you have on the market. You know, it's very different. There's a lot of, next slide, there's a lot of diverse buildings, there's old and new, on our side. You know, on South Market, you know, new buildings. It's just a different kind of context. You know, we all know that, right? It's very, very dynamic. You know, a lot of tourists, you know, throngs of people on certain days. So it's a different environment. Even just in that little block, I was just around the corner on in the last project, you know, on market is a different time. So we thought about that when we thought about the architecture. Next slide. Well, I'll talk a little bit. Again, so North Market, that's that old facade we're keeping. I'll talk about that in a minute. Our lobby, restaurant, and then you know, some other programmable, I don't want to get into too much, garage, and then the garden that Mr. Hanlon referenced that we have to do for a couple of reasons. We have grand trees back there, and also that's part of the agreement. We've got a 25-foot setback from doing our effective through that. There's a lot of relief off of that street. Next slide. There's that garden. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back one more time. So on the ground floor, again, just to get you guys to understand how we're thinking about it. Again, everything in red is historic fabric. And what we've done here, we've got the entrance to the lobby in the hotel is here. We have two main entrances on the street. Restaurant bar is here through this sort of exterior outdoor courtyard behind that facade. Next slide. And I'll go through these floor plans pretty quickly. Sort of half story, that's 2 stories beds. Next slide. Next slide. I think the key takeaway here is floor below and this fourth floor, almost all of the height is back, 100 feet back. All that height is into the other one. We don't have any rooftop equipment on the very top. We'll have it on low levels. Right. Okay, so like the previous one, we also looked at Ansonboro, but thought about it a little bit differently. And one of the things considered as a big idea. I love big ideas. It's something, I cut it on my house. I like the idea of this sort of layering. And if you're in Ansonboro City, but that's also part of the characteristic of Ansonboro in kind of a different way. One, there's sort of a layering where you see it on the facade, but you also see it on these sort of walls where there's sort of a different layer in front of a house or from the stair. So we thought about that on the next slide. This slide is really more for our client, but one of the things that he challenged us, he wanted to have a light-filled interior space. And so we've got a historic building, it will be a historic wall facade that we're going to be exposed to, and we're going to try and have a very light-filled space. We're also, because we're facing south, we can't have a lot of direct sunlight, so we like that. Materials, this is more for the rear of the building, but staggered metal panels. Okay, so thinking about this facade a little bit, when I first started working on this project, I remembered that it got sort of previous application the architect made back in 2017, he tried to tear down the whole thing, the board denied it. And actually read the meeting minutes, and it really wasn't about the value of this particular building, the actual components, but really about the form. These openings are not original. This is not original. There's block here, there's contemporary brick there, we think it fell over. It's not this gem in terms of the actual, the exact form. So we took the idea of that form that we have to keep and wanted to just celebrate that point. Next slide. So conceptually, we have that facade. We decided to bring in some new openings that more closely related, same height, same proportion as our building that we're attaching to. So we can give a stronger edge on the street, a little bit more formality, so you can read that facade. Also, it's got a little ease off, so again, it feels like it's in the run element. And behind that, we've got this fairly large, well, two-story space, glass bottom. And in between, the screen element that separates the two. Next slide. All right, so here's the front elevation. Again, looking at the plan below, you walk into an exterior courtyard and then go into the restaurant lobby. So what we've got here is this setback, is this glass wall with a abstract screen of sort of drawing off of the figure. We cut a spot here so you can see, again, to really celebrate that form of that wall. We would re-stucco, or just not re-stucco, stucco the whole facade, bring it back together as, again, somebody, this would keep next slide. So we spent a lot of time, again, what's the word I go with it again? What was it, Mr. Mayor? Yes, we're not indifferent. So we spent a lot of time on this. So we want this to be interesting in the spirit of the market, but we do not want it to be colors. Obviously, there's a lot of development we have to feel in that screen. Meant to feel interesting, but we don't want it to be aggressive. Next slide. Very intentional, the height of this aligns with this lower parapet. That's the height. When you lay back, you'll see it, but it's really not going to feel out. And so this really is the important thing here. This is market. This just shows where that, like 6 or 7 feet back. It's very narrow, that sidewalk inside. You would not see this is the elevation because of the building proposed in front of it. Next slide. Okay, thinking about Raper Valley. So existing and proposed. We really like the Kaufman State West, and we took that same idea, that facade, you know, and replicated that. Like a hyphen in between the old and the new. Sort of an abstract version of that form. Also be brick, but rather than trying to match it, which we can never do, painted brick, so that you get the feels like a newer building. The paint color would be the same color as the spec all the time building. And then behind it, if we do have a fairly tall building, we would have metal back away from the street. Next slide. This is a view if you're looking, sitting on Game Yard, looking at the corner of Game Yard right just to the left there. Brick, painted. Again, the panels are pulled away intentionally. We've got metal panel that comes up and so it's back. Next slide. See down Rapers. Having that be fairly quiet in the market. Get further back on Game Yard. So this is that garden where these spraying trees are. That back a good bit from Game Yard. And that part of Game Yard is getting Next slide. So very important. Next slide. This is showing maps, and again, it's pretty intentional. We've got a tall building here, but we wanted it to recede and come back, step back a little bit. We'll talk about that later. I think the important thing here, here's all those sort of how that structure works behind. So this one's important. We studied this a good bit on the street. When we had our meeting, by demolition, we had good. It was interesting though, because we're standing there, Nick and I, and thinking about, all right, how much of this is in the waste stream? I think this shows what we're intending to do. Again, we're not trying to the idea. We think it's very appropriate, but it's very subtle as you walk in. Next slide. So that's the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Public comment on this tonight. Ms. Penny.
Conservation Society of Charleston. We would like to start by thanking the applicant for reviewing the project with us as well. Generally, the building feels well scaled to the streetscape, and we are not opposed to the approach of the curtain wall and screen introduced behind the historic facade. However, as currently rendered, the facade loses its legibility as a historic remnant. We feel a wider approach to altering the facade should be taken to retain some of its historic texture and speak to the evolution of the property. Also, while in isolation, the new design is very interesting and attractive, it feels out of place within the context. Specifically, the organic design of the screen wall is a bit too far on the spectrum of contemporary, and which should be simplified to be more compatible with the largely historic and traditional character of the surroundings. Circling around to the back of the property, the rear portion of the building feels unresolved, and we feel some elements need further study. First, the thinness of the white brick facades is uncomfortable, and their purpose is unclear, other than masking the building form behind it. Perhaps these could be studied with greater dimension and depth to engage with the metal massing in a more authentic way. We also struggle with the seamlessness of the metal panels from the body of the building to the roof, and feel a sense of transition or delineation should be introduced to better define the roof form. And finally, the openings at the ground level are overscaled and should be studied to feel more comfortable to the pedestrian experience. The project has many promising elements, including some very high-quality materials, products, and features, and we're optimistic the creative architectural approach will work in this location with further development. However, due to the level of restudy we are suggesting, we feel the project should be deferred at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Further public comment on this? Seeing none, city staff comments or recommendations?
No reminder, the proposed project has no compliance related to height. The North Market facade is a termination for State Street, as this is a terminating list to consider the view sheds to the project that are both close and far. All right, staff comments. The North Market facade shows signs of having been reconfigured. Is simple and ordered while preserving its overall form. The new awnings are a great addition, being simple and working as directional elements. A newly proposed recessed facade consisting of perforated aluminum screen creates an interesting layering and may offer unique texture and interesting shadows. The layering is edgy and interesting but not antagonistic. The pairing of this with the reconfigured facade makes a unique juxtaposition and can soften and showcase the reconfigured facade well. The correct design, colors, and finishes of the aluminum screen will be critical. If known at this time, applicants should describe how the screen is attached, how large the panels are, how they will intersect, and how the pattern will repeat continuously or not. Board should weigh in if there is feedback on these details at this time. 2, the zinc panels offer richness and durability to the exterior, which will develop a patina as they age. 3, the 4-foot tall aluminum fence on main yard should reflect the omission of exposed fasteners. The gates for transformer access need to be simple but nicely articulated. And last, the primary building exterior materials need to wrap the interior of the vehicular exit onto Raper's Alley with an appropriate ceiling and special repairs. We're recommending conceptual approval incorporating more discussions.
Mr. Belling, if you like.
Okay. So, thank you for those comments and thank you, Ms. Finnegan. Just to sort of respond to the Preservation Society's comments, I think, one of the comments was it feels out of place in walking, and it's complimentary, but just not sure about this, and that's why I showed y'all market, the market, the context of market. And it's not variable. It's not important. It is a different character. It's not Broad Street. It's not Broad Street. It's very dynamic. And what we've tried to do is come up with some interesting. So, we would just ask you to think about it that way. Once you just leave on thank you. Spent all this time on these things. I want to see them. I think it's important. We set up a very formal edge to the street. It's not there now. So what you have now is I think it's a much more complete street. Sensitive to doing something that is appropriate. So one thing I will say, and this kind of addresses a little bit a lot of development to be done, and these comments about how the panels work. There's a lot of study to be done. There's going to be some physical mock-ups that we're going to have to look at to see how it connects, how this works, transparent is it, maybe it's a little more transparent, but less now. Once we get to a point, that's what we'll. So that just needs to be sort of understood. The last thing about, I think, one of the comments of preservation was sort of transition on the back, and you sort of have a seamless metal panel position from the facade to fascia, it ends up being a roof on top of the building, and something that's heavier covered it. And the idea is that this is something that, but it also sort of recedes. It's interesting that we're looking at, never thought I'd have a minute. Charleston Place, and here we have Sonoma. I was looking at that the whole time, and that is two different materials. This is a very clean, there's not detail to do, but that, again, we don't do that to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Board discussion.
Okay. So when every time someone shows Ivy, I immediately think it's my home. The abstract screen is just uncomfortable for me. I find it massive and overwhelming, and I can appreciate it on the previous project as well. But that's going to be incredibly visible. And we're talking about aluminum screen, and I can't imagine that level of screen is enormous. And just worry about the manageability of that as time moves forward. And then instead of replicating the new addition that's to the right, I don't know what page that's on, but you've got the old building right here and you're replicating it right next to it. And instead of that, just a parapet wall, so it's not replicating it. It's clearly a new building and just maybe just a flat parapet wall. It might make it a little bit taller, but it's just really fun. That old building was so great. So your building's going to look great, but I was out there laughing. And the other thing is on the sidewalk, the enlarged openings. It does feel a little bit big. And something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Manners. Other board comments?
So I was around the last time this came before the board, and there was a lot of debate about whether to keep that facade, and it really, it wasn't about the architectural quality of the facade itself, but rather that it marks a particular period of time in the development of the market before it became tourist fly trap. And if I remember correctly, it was a wholesale grocer, early 20th century, and that was the main thrust of the preservation effort. I actually think that the modifications to it, there's 4 large openings and kind of scale to the storefronts adjacent. I think that'll really stay. And you can only successfully abstract the Charleston pattern if you understand the Charleston pattern. And I think that this application does show a lot of promise in that regard. And these renderings are really conceptual, and I'm very interested in how this big idea would be translated to a 35-foot tall wall. Not only in the details of how it comes together mechanically, but also the scale and elements of the pattern itself. I'm generally comfortable with the proposal and in agreement with Mrs. Jackson.
Further board comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions.
Sure.
You get an A17. Mr. Bello, on the back end, behind the historic building, on the second floor, it says restaurant below, so all of that is open to the restaurant below?
Hold on,
Peter Rose on Lawrence.
Are you talking?
Behind the curtain wall, all of that is just open space?
Yeah, that's a 2-story space.
Okay.
So that's the interior. This has a little balcony right here, and this is open to the sky right here.
So, and the purpose of the screening is to let in natural light, is that right?
Yes, so the goal, is to light the space. It faces south. We don't want to have mirrored glass or dark glass. So we want to put some kind of screen in front to filter that lighting.
But the roofing above it?
It's solid roof, it's not glass.
Okay.
The roof is not. You wouldn't see that.
So you have almost like a two-story atrium, but with a solid roof.
That's right.
Okay. Because I get what's trying to be done, but I struggle with the screen, because even when I'm looking at the first floor, I mean, you're losing potentially a lot of restaurant, or not a lot of restaurant space, but you could pull the restaurant forward and still have the recessed windows to give more space in the restaurant. And by getting rid of the screen, I'm sure a glass roof would be different and more expensive, but at least you're getting into the lighting into the overall atrium. The front side that's facing market could then have a completely different element that I think still brings in the maybe the contemporary style that you're looking for. I think of the murals that are on the east and west frontages along the actual market. Potentially an artwork, a spit of mural above it that could attract the eye more towards the building generally. But that's just me spitballing and talking. But overall, I think the project is definitely in the right direction. I would be certainly in favor of conceptual with a restudy of it.
Mr. Fellow, I would just say that Ms. Minigan's comment about the thinness of the near sides and the rear might be a little more steady just for the depth. And I hear what you say about being very intentional about the break on that mansard roof in the back, but just keep an open mind to that. I'm actually fine with the North Market elevation and screen. As was mentioned earlier, I think the key is successful execution, because it's big. And I think it is fair to ask about maintenance questions related to what product gets used there. I know we're not drilling down that level tonight, but that's something to reasonably anticipate, because I think it's such a big element. And I understand exactly why you're doing it. It makes a very good break of what you do with this facade on the market versus the rest of the building. I totally understand the vocabulary of what you're trying to accomplish, and I think it does it successfully. I also think that if you're a pedestrian walking around in the market where this is, as you said, this is in fact the entire south elevation, but think about it, you're never going to see that unless you're on top of people's building, or some other limited user. You're never going to see the elevation that we saw tonight unless you're at a really tall building somewhere else.
The aluminum screen?
No, the building.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were still talking
that's over it. You're very much going to see the aluminum screen from the trees. I'm talking about the massing of the broader structure. It looks big, but no one's ever, very few people are going to see that in the trees. That's fine. So I guess I would say the thinness, or maybe the need to be thicker on those applique facades and rear, about whether there does need to be a break on the mansard roof. I think I'm deferring to you on that, because you said you thought you had it figured out, but just consider it. And North Market facade is fine, except I think that the whole thing hinges on the success of that aluminum screen being a very high quality element.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. If this gets conceptual approval tonight, does that mean that some version of that aluminum screen would be approved?
Yes, sir. I think it's a pretty big.
I think that, for me, I'd like to have more information about the project. I like the project, and I like the concept, but I'd like to learn more about it, because it's a big deal.
It is, I agree.
I think a lot of it comes down to the execution, which I think you're going to have to move into preliminary level to really understand it. As a concept, I think it's really doable. It could fall apart at preliminary, but I think you get to that level of execution to really understand.
But then you can't undo it, right?
You could
Well,
stall
if we
it out.
ultimately don't approve the nature of the screen, it might have to get swapped out.
Yeah, if they detail it and it looks awful, then I mean,
Right.
it's stalled out. But I think that the fact that you're even contemplating a mansard roof makes me question your architectural talents.
It's gonna be done.
as a name.
That's, it is losing credibility, but yes.
And facade, because it's actually